Also what you can do for them in order to best finance your society, because money is something that really holds societies back. And yeah, those are my 3 main points.
Jessel?
It's a good thing none of us are short, so we can keep this microphone here. But my name's Jessel, I'm running for Societies Officer. Basically, from day one, I know the ins and outs of the SU, because I set up my own society in year 1. And because of that, I know which things to improve and which things to keep the same. So my manifesto is currently online, so you can have a look at that. But 3 main points that I want to pick up on. Number 1, I want to make it easier for new societies to be created. Societies are great here at Warwick. It's just part of the Warwick community. And it's when I came to my open day, before I came here and I came to the open day, I just loved the societies that were performing, societies that were around. It just created that campus feeling. So I want more societies to be created. Number 2, in the next academic year, so 2015-16, I want to meet all society presidents within the first 5 weeks of that academic year. You may be asking why. Well, because I want to sort out any problems or answer any questions they may have. As a society president, I know the fact that it's so important to hit the ground running in that academic year. You're going to get members up, you want to get members signed up, you want to get socials running, you want to get activities running, and so sorting out all those mediocre problems would be useful to those society presidents. And I want to get my hands dirty and I want to sort them out for them. And number 3, I want to initiate a digital revolution. And by that I mean I want those Word documents online in the exec resources page gone. I just want an online form, you submit, and it goes to the relevant person in SUHQ. Now I have the experience and drive needed to deliver an experience.
And that's time, thank you.
Thanks.
And George.
Hello everyone. My name's George Creasy. I'm a 3rd year Moore student and I'm obviously going for SOCS. So a bit about me. I've been really engaged with societies during my time here at Warwick. I've volunteered with Warwick Inspire. I've written for the BOR, the money section and the science and technology section. I've been the marketing representative for the Accounting Society, and I've been really involved with Warwick Jailbreak. So I did Warwick Jailbreak 2 years ago and had such an incredible time. I think everyone should do Warwick Jailbreak. I love it so much. So much so that I became treasurer and now I'm president. And so we ran loads of different events, really successfully, raised so much money for charity. And I've just really enjoyed being involved in and around the SU, putting on events. And I feel like events like Jailbreak are pretty crazy. And I feel like that I can lend that sort of expertise as Societies Officer to all sorts of different societies. Even I've been to careers events, I know how they work, I can help out. So manifesto points. 1 point which I've kind of been mentioned already, but about sponsorship for smaller societies. I think we should be working with Leamington Trade of Commerce and Coventry Trade of Commerce to work with smaller businesses and hook them up with smaller societies. And I think there's a real synergy to be found here. They can have their socials, say if a tea room in Leamington, a society could hold socials there, but then that tea room could be on the hoodies of that society, I think, and they would want to hit that student market. So I think there's a real synergy there. And another point is an online ticketing portal for sold out SU and society events. So stuff like POP, stuff like school days, they always sell out. There's always people who have tickets who can't go. There's people who want to go but don't have tickets. Why isn't there a waiting list?
And that's time, thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to go for longer opening next time. Sorry guys to cut you off, but I just had to do it because we said 90 seconds. Okay, we'll start with potentially one of the biggest questions I think for Societies Officer candidates, which is every year regularly Societies Officers and SAB teams make hall societies a strategic priority. They think that it's a really good thing to get to work, and every year it's difficult and it doesn't work quite as well as they'd want to. Do you candidates ever think that hall societies will work, and if so, what change do you think they need? So we'll start with you, George.
I think they definitely can work. I agree. I remember back in my first year, I didn't get that involved with the Root Society. But I think a good way of promoting these would be integrations with or collaborative events with other societies. I heard about Warwick Labour Society who went to Salsa, and I think they all absolutely loved it. And I think if, say, Roots Society went to Salsa, they would love it. So like I think and then Salsa would love the participation from different halls, and this would be if you made an event of it, like with more different events, not just let's go to pop, let's go to school days, let's do lots of different stuff and kind of promote that collaboration between, and then I think we could sort of boost participation and engagement.
Just so.
Yeah, I think hall societies is one of those things that does need improving. And I remember in my first year, I mean, I was part of the Bluebell Society, and that didn't work as well as I thought it would. But hall sports is something that's been great and has been growing ever since Ruby done it, and hopefully the next sports officer will do it as well. I think an increase in hall sports will work, and I think just holding events so that people can go to them. And I know it's hard because like Roots is 900 bedrooms, so that's 900 people to get into a society. But I think if you hold small events throughout the term, people will go to those events and be part of that society.
Aaron?
I'm going to go for a slightly different approach here and say that I would say they only really work for the first term, because most societies have a sort of constant through flow of members, whereas hall societies, it's always the same sort of group of people. Now, Hall Wars is an amazing way to meet everyone else in your halls, because you get everyone in the room, you're wearing the same shirts, and it's also very competitive and you feel very teamy. But I think outside of that, they're not worth pushing as much, because you will know the people in your halls because you've lived with them.
And Emmy?
I think that hall societies are massively important, actually. I think that I agree that in the first term they are more significant because obviously you're meeting the new people for the first time and it's all very new and exciting. But I think that it's hugely important to get involved with the people that you're living with, because even if you're communicating with the people on your floor, in your kitchen, it's hard to reach everyone in your accommodation. I think that a lot of support needs to be provided to the presidents of these societies to just give them ideas on how to engage with their members and their audience. I also think publicity is a big issue here, because I'm not sure if again, it's a long time since I was in first year. I'm not sure if people really know how much a whole society can do for them. So I think just improving the communication between presidents of whole societies and their members, and giving them more opportunities to do more fun things.
Okay, so it seems year on year we see a decrease in the amount of students running for an exec position. Some people attribute this to 9 grand fees, which has made people focus more on academic life, and some people attribute it to other reasons. What would you do in order to encourage more people to run for exec posts in societies? And just so we'll start with you.
Yeah, there has been a decrease in students running for exec positions, but I mean, we need to advertise certain people of that society who have been there for a long time, who've had that exec position, and say, well, yes, 9 grand tuition fees, and there is academic work going on. You have to get your head down and work and get a good classification degree. But at the same time, you need to have that experience of societies, and being an exec can give you that experience, and it's important for your CV. We need to I know careers push that, every time they come into a lecture or something, that it's good to be part of an exec of a society, because it'll be good for your CV, and future employers will look at that. But we also kind of need to push the fact that it's to do with the experience and the fact they get to meet so many new people on the exec of society. I mean, I'm being president of my society for 2 years, and it's just been amazing to meet all the new people and having a great experience.
Aaron?
Well, I mean, I wasn't here before the 9 grand fees were introduced, so I can't really comment too much on it. But I think that it would be very important to show how much you can learn from being on the exec of a society. It introduces you to something you generally won't get at university, which is a role of leadership, a role of responsibility, and you need to sort of be very on your feet. I think that needs to be emphasised more, so that more people are willing to run for exec. Yeah.
Emmy?
Yeah, I've personally noticed a big decrease in the people running for exec in my own societies and in my friends' societies. So I do recognise that it is an issue. Again, I keep going on about publicity, but I do think that publicity strategies need to be increased for societies. Membership retention, and member uptake are just massive issues that societies need to tackle. The more members, the more likely people are going to run for exec positions. Also, I really want to collaborate with careers and skills, just to emphasise the huge advantages of being on a society exec. Yes, your studies are very, very important, obviously, but my experience at Warwick wouldn't be the same if I wasn't in the societies and on the exec of the societies that I've been a part of.
And George?
I personally, like for me, because it's being more expensive to come to uni, that makes me want to get more out of it. I want to get more involved. I want to make the most of that $9,000. So being on a society exec is how I've done that. Like, it's been way more fun than actually doing my degree. So how can we increase this? I think it's the current exec's role to look for successors. So like RAG the other day held a sort of drop-in session for anyone who was thinking about running for exec next year. So I think as execs, we need to promote this obviously to exec, but you need to look to your members, chat to them, increase that communication. Like for Jailbreak, we had loads of people inquire like, oh, how do I run for exec? Oh, it looks really fun. And so educate members, keep them active, and better communication with them, I guess.
Each year we have to split a limited amount of money between all the societies we have on campus. Do you think we have too many societies here at Warwick? Do you think the level is around, do you think we have around the right amount of societies, or do you think we have actually capacity to have more societies here at Warwick? Aaron?
I would say that the only upper limit on societies is the number of different interests that there are across campus. Now, the start of this question was also finance-based on how much money can we fund into these societies, which brings me back to one of my manifesto points in which I said I wanted to work with company campus reps so that we can try and get more finance for societies. Because obviously the SU only has a limited budget, whereas if you bring in more society sponsorship, then it's much easier to bring in more. One of the ideas I had was maybe setting up a kind of another grant in a way, but that a company sort of gives to us, and that way it would be free up more money for societies.
Emmy?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron. There can never be enough societies. There's always someone who has the same interests as you. The only shame, obviously, is that the 30 member limit. But unfortunately, I'm not sure much can be done about that. In terms of funding, this year I was on the Clive Barker Performance Award judging panel, so I know how difficult it is to choose who gets what funding. And I think a solution to this is helping societies understand where their funding opportunities are and how they can achieve them, whether that be the ones that are already existing, that the university provides or the students' union provides, or helping them to actively seek out their own sponsorship opportunities. So I propose that we have some sort of finance drop-in session to help smaller societies or those who maybe aren't as confident with funding opportunities to learn how to actually approach businesses, big or small, and just give them the know-how, basically, is my answer to that.
George?
I totally agree. Within limits, but there can never be enough societies. Everyone has different interests. That's one of my favourite things about Warwick. It's what I show off to my friends back home about Warwick. We have the most societies in the country. I think it's fantastic. It's why I really want to get this role. But yeah, funding is an issue. The more societies you have, the less gets spread out between them. So again, it's sort of all about collaboration. Like if we can share resources and put it on events together, run stuff together, then we can decrease costs hopefully and sort of run things more efficiently. And also my sponsorship for smaller societies idea, which I explained earlier, which is my manifesto, would obviously help to alleviate that, especially with small societies. Because at the minute, small societies, they have to charge for their membership. Whereas we could boost that membership if they could get a little bit of money, whether it be from funding from the SU or from sponsorship, and then that would boost engagement if people could join for free. So yeah, stuff like that is a great idea.
And Jessel?
I mean, as I said at the beginning, I want to make it easier for new societies to be created. So I don't think there should be a limit on how many societies we have here at Warwick. You know, it just adds to the community and the whole campus feeling here at the university. I mean, in terms of finance, I know having so many societies can limit the amount of money that's spread throughout the 200 plus societies we have. But I think we need to kind of make those societies aware of what opportunities they have to fund themselves so that they become self-sufficient. And sponsorship is one of them, and I totally agree with my candidate here. Sponsorship for small societies is a big thing. I'm president of a small society, and I find it very difficult to get sponsorship for my society. But like I said, I want to get my hands dirty, and I want to help those small societies get sponsorship so that big societies, small societies are all equal in one.
Okay, and we'll end with pre-submitted questions with a fun one. So, say if you could flash back to first year of university and you could create a society that isn't here at Warwick, what would that society be? And I think we'll start with you, Emmy, but you can take a few moments to think about it. No pressure, it's meant to be a fun one.
Okay. We have a lot of societies. I'm not sure what we don't cover, to be honest. I really like the... let me take that back a second, sorry. Yeah, we have such a wide range of societies. We've got serious societies, we've got the more fun societies, we've got, you know, the talent societies, skill societies, things like that. I kind of like the silly societies. I know there was a Nick Cage Appreciation Society a few years ago. Not gonna lie, I wish I'd joined something like that, where the shared interest is silliness and, you know, taking time out of your studies just to have fun and meet like-minded people with the same sense of humour and stuff like that. So maybe some sort of Nick Cage Appreciation Society revamp, maybe like a Shia LaBeouf society, something like that, I'm not sure.
George.
So in the last couple of years, we've seen the really popular Harry Potter Society and the Doctor Who Society, and I think, why can't we do this with TV shows? So why isn't there like a Breaking Bad Society or a Game of Thrones Society or a Sherlock Society? Come on, like, we will have, these are really things that people get really passionate about. Why can't there be a society for that?
Jessel?
Yeah, I mean, TV shows are good and actors are great, but we have many societies to do with geographical location. So we've got, the Northern Society here. Flashback to my first year, if I had to create one, I'm from Leicester, so probably the Leicester Society, because people from Leicester like me are awesome.
And Aaron?
Funnily enough, in my manifesto, I actually set out a little idea for this. But for those of you who are more involved in sports, you might know of the Pick and Mix Sports Society, and I wanted to have a look at doing that for societies. So, for instance, for activities and game societies, you could run a different one each week, run a little sort of taster session, see if people wanted to get involved. However, I would really like to bring back the Assassin Society. And if you don't know what that is, basically you get given 2 pictures of people, and you have to find them and poke them with cardboard. And basically, the winner is the last person standing.
Okay, thanks for that, guys. Others thought the Ukulele Society. I can't believe we don't have one. I really think there should be one, but there we go. Questions from the floor? Any questions from the floor? Yes, Luke.
Hello. Awesome. Okay, so I don't know if you are involved with any societies that use zippies, but there's been some kind of issues with that, including the locks and stuff. And I just wondered if you could propose any kind of alternative ways to deal with that, either the lock or like an alternative space. Like, what would you do like a Zippy's alternative?
So Zippy's the curse of many a societies, officer. George, what would you do with Zippy's as space?
Okay, so I've faced this a lot as being president of Jailbreak. We often need to get stuff at weekends when we run events. But I know for a fact the admin staff who work in the resources room, like what execs want and what they want clash a bit. So recently they've put locks, you have to go get a key. And I know they're looking into getting boxes. And I think if each society could have a box with a lock on, so then the president or whoever could hold the lock to the key to that lock, then we could leave the door open and have locks and then have nice tubs. Hopefully that would stop stuff going everywhere and it looking like the room of requirement in Harry Potter. Tubs with locks.
Jessel?
Yeah, I use Zippies, and it's really irritating about how messy and it gets in there, and you can't find your stuff sometimes, and you might have thought someone might have stolen it, or it's just hidden in a bunch of mess. I'm from a reliable source. I know that there is a locker up at Westwood that has all sorts of stuff in it that hasn't been emptied out yet, because of the time that the Societies Office and those in the resources room, they haven't got the time to do that. If elected, I will get a team together, and one weekend we'll just clear out that session for Westwood Locker, and we can have another Zippies down there.
Aaron?
So my solution for Zippies would probably be based, again, around what it used to be, the sort of combination lock, but try and change the combination as regularly as possible, and then communicate that to societies as easily as possible. I think one of the issues with the box idea that was just said was that some societies, for instance, if you take TEDx, if you go up there, there's an enormous TEDx sign, and that's not going to fit in a box, to be honest.
And Emmy?
I've seen firsthand the issues of Zippies. I completely understand why the recent changes were made. Unfortunately, a little bit of naughtiness was going on and things, I think, went missing, which is a huge shame because Zippies is such a fantastic resource for societies. My solution, I would investigate a number of solutions. I haven't got one solution at the minute. It's something I would have to look into. But possible solutions could be, changing the lock passcode every week and emailing that out to exec on a weekly basis, or some sort of key code system with your university card. Again, there's pros and cons to each one. That's the slightly more expensive solution. CCTV cameras, just anything to deter the situation that's gone on this term. Although I do understand why the resources room solution was put in place. It's not the best, so I would do my best to try and fix that.
Other questions from the floor? Yeah, Sam.
So societies can be a particularly difficult place for people who don't drink alcohol, what would you do to make sure that those who don't drink alcohol still feel welcome and comfortable in societies?
Jessel?
I totally agree with you, because in my first year I didn't drink at all, so it was really hard for me to fit in with societies. Now I don't, I'm an alcoholic, but that's a different story. I think, in my first year, had there been non-alcoholic drinking socials like we have a laser quest in Coventry, we have a bowling alley in Leamington, and those kind of things, those activities that aren't drinking related, I think would have helped me more to get into societies, and probably, I'm not regretting setting up my own society, but it probably would have stopped me from holding my own society, because with that I could run non-drinking socials, because I could attract people just like me.
Aaron?
I think lots of societies at the moment, they normally try and do about one non-drinking social a term, and it should be increased. Some examples, for instance, so I've been on the exec at RAW this year, which is the Radio Society, for those who don't know it. And most of our socials are non-drinking, and that works really well, and they're really nice and friendly. Another example would be with Taekwondo. Every single week, so they have Circle on a Wednesday, but then on Tuesday they have a nice little social in Curiosity, where everyone just sits down, gets a cup of tea, and that's really nice. So I think a lot of it would just be putting out ideas for societies for non-drinking socials and getting them to use those examples.
Emmy?
I enjoy a night out at pop as much as the next girl. Obviously, it's not for everyone, and I'm very aware of that. I've been the social sec for Warwick Glee this year, and that's really raised my awareness of, how many people just don't drink, which is fine. I think the Taekwondo example, that's a really, really good example. It does sort of depend on a society-by-society basis how many non-drinking socials are organised throughout the term. So I think just raising awareness at the start of the year about what other things are available. Go for a curry, go for a takeaway, stuff like that. I would combat that by giving society exec alternative options for events at the start of the term, because it is a really important issue.
And George.
Yeah, I completely agree with what's already been said. We need, more non-drinking socials is important. But at the same time, I think it's sort of the social sec's job to look after this. Like, the social sec it's their job to make sure everyone has a good time, regardless of what they're drinking. And I think you can have fun going circling without drinking alcohol, because the games are just wicked fun. But I think whether it's in the training, in the exec handover, the social secs there needs to be pressure on them to not force people to drink if they don't want to. Be more inclusive and be more inclusive, and then hopefully we can sort of help this culture that you have to smash pints all the time. So.
And do we have any other questions from the floor? Yes, Philip.
So this year had the new £19 socks fed fee. What do the candidates think it's a good or a bad thing? And if they think it's a bad thing, what can be done to mitigate it?
So the socks fed fee went up to £19, Aaron.
I mean, obviously any increase in any kind of fees isn't a great thing at all. However, it is unfortunately a necessary thing at the same time to make sure that our societies have enough funding throughout the year. I guess one of the things I could push for, again, using my example, I wanted to work with the company campus reps, see if maybe they wanted to put some money towards lowering the socks fed fee, which would go hand in hand with them sort of setting up a grant and things like that.
Emmy?
Yeah, unfortunately, the socks fed fee, like Aaron said, is any rise in costs students don't like. But there's not really a lot we can do to lowering the costs. What we can do, however, is really emphasise the benefits of being in a society, because obviously the £19 shell out at the start of the year, that will put a lot of people off, which is a real shame. So I think just really promoting the employability, personal and social benefits of joining societies is really, really important, and making sure people know that they are getting their money's worth. I feel like I've got my money's worth being in societies, even with the increase, to be honest. So just really promoting that.
George?
Yeah, everyone hates increasing fees. It sucks, but if I was to be SOCS officer, I would be clearer on where that money is being spent. Like, let students know that £19 doesn't disappear into the wilderness like your £9 might. It is being spent back in societies. It goes into treasurers' budgets every single year, and I want to be clearer on that. But also in my manifesto, I've got a multi-year SOCS Fed membership. So why can't you buy 2 or 3 years at once with a slight discount? That would help, hopefully make it a bit more manageable. And then you'll get to third year and you're like, oh, I've already paid for it. I may as well join these societies. And at the same time, better advertisement for SOCS Fed exempt societies, stuff like RAG, Inspire, Warwick Volunteers, you don't need SOCS Fed for. So all these like second and third years, a lot of my friends haven't bought it this year. They thought, £19, no way. When actually they can still do quite a lot of society stuff. They can get really involved, but I don't think that's well advertised. So making people more aware of that would help.
And Jessel.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with my other candidates. £19 is a ridiculous amount to pay, especially my first year. I think it was much lower than that. I'm glad you asked the question, Philip, because in my manifesto, I did say I was going to have a staggered SOCS Fed fee. So by that, I mean we have freshmen paying the most of that fee and finalists paying the least, and mid-year undergraduates, in between the two. Why? Because freshmen want to come here, join all the societies, so they'll pay that fee. But with finalists, it's really hard to coax them out of their rooms when they're studying all the time. So having a really low SOCS Fed fee will allow them, can coax them out. They can come join societies, and hopefully, add to their experience.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Yep, Kat.
Cool. So all of you have talked about your various different experiences on various society exams. I'm wondering, how would you make sure that you don't give preferential treatment to the society that you used to be on the exec of?
Okay, Emma?
Very, very important question, I think. Yeah, I think it's tough because I just think I wouldn't. So I'm not really sure how to answer that question because that's not the job. Your job isn't to be biased, it's to be fair, it's to represent all societies. So I think that's just a personal thing, that you just don't create a bias. I mean, with the societies that I'm involved with at the minute, I would continue to get involved with them. I would continue to go to their meetups, I would continue to go on their socials. But in terms of funding and things like that, I think it's really important not to have a bias. So that's just a personal thing for me. That's the best answer I can give to that.
George?
I would do my best not to be biased. So I come from Jailbreak Society, but I would say I'm not so much biased towards Jailbreak as so much biased towards being for charitable and fundraising events, which any society can do. And putting on events in general, I think putting on events takes time and effort, and organising stuff like this, I feel like the skills I've learned are transferable between societies. So I would be able to help all sorts of societies, including volunteering and academic ones as well. So,
Jessel?
Yeah, when I become society's officer, I represent all societies, so I'm not going to be biased to one or the other. It probably would be a bit hard for me to give up my society at the moment, which is Medieval Society, which is I founded. It's like a brainchild, it's your child, you don't want to really give it up. But in terms of what I am as a society's officer, I'll do my best, because I want what's the best for all 200 plus societies. I want what's the best for Warwick. So I will not be biased at all.
And Darren?
Now, Raw, which is the main site I'm involved in, obviously has very close ties with the SU, and I think be one I have to focus on not being biased on. However, I also helped set up another society, which was Warwick Rockets. But again, it's just a case of saying something or thinking it and then double checking it in your head, and then compare it to another society. So put another society in exactly the same position and think, would I reach a similar outcome? And then if you would, I would say that would stop me being biased.
Okay, thank you very much. You'll also be pleased to know that's the end of the questioning. Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of the week.
Perfect. Hi guys, thank you for sticking around. I'm A-Rob, obviously I'm running to be your sports officer. Sports had a massive impact on my life here at Warwick. However, as a university, I think we do undersell sport considerably. My manifesto briefly: enhance Warwick's reputation as a top sports university. Believe me when I say the facilities we have access to here are absolutely second to none. I think the facilities are categorised in as gold standard. You look at Cryfield, you look at the tennis centre, absolutely brilliant, but we just don't sell that enough. So kind of improving the sports intake we have, sport-specific tours on open days. Lots of people just simply don't know what's here, and when courses and stuff at universities are so similar, sport can often be the selling point, so that's what we've got to do. We're going to increase provisions for clubs that already exist in terms of physiotherapy, in terms of coaching, and in terms of access to access to a greater sport intake, as I just mentioned. Point two, we're going to improve the Team Warwick brand. As it stands, I think the teams are almost a little bit isolated, whereas there should be a real community feel amongst the teams. In order to achieve this, we're going to look at increasing coverage of games. The student media coverage this year has been absolutely fantastic, and that's something we've got to continue. Three, undertake a sports club review. The membership prices is obviously quite a contentious issue. For us, for a member of the football club, £89 is a drop in the ocean for everything that I get from being a member of a sports club. However, for sports clubs that are perhaps on the fringes, such as your lads that just want to turn up and play five-a-side for half an hour on a Friday, or your aerobics girls that want to do a spin session for an hour or whatever, £89 is a little bit steep. So I've already spoken to Warwick Sport about seeing if we can kind of fit these clubs under the Warwick Sport umbrella, reducing their membership prices, but allowing them to retain their autonomy. Four is varsity. Varsity has got to be bigger and better. The big idea regarding this is to introduce a varsity showcase. If we do it early in term one, when all the freshers are still very excited, we have a Warwick versus Coventry sporting fixture. It's not only going to promote varsity itself, it's going to promote sport at Warwick more broadly. So that's the master plan with regard to that. And that is about it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, For anyone not engaged in sports, students have very little interaction with the sports officer. How will you propose to interact more with non-sports students, and how will you encourage students to get involved in sports throughout the year?
Interaction is definitely something we've got to look to tackle. Obviously, that works both ways. I definitely look to continue doing what Ruby's done this year in terms of an open door kind of policy in the office. Wherever people want to come and speak to me, that's absolutely fine, because obviously it goes without saying you can only kind of do what you hear about. So an open door policy. Interaction, as I just mentioned, kind of fringe sports clubs, I think prices probably does prevent people. So we've definitely looked to do a little bit around that. If we can bring the price of sport down for those that just want to play casually or whatever, that is certainly something I'd be very keen to do, and definitely would improve interaction greatly and participation.
Great. Okay, so do you think that circling and pop encourages a climate of regularly drinking excess alcohol? An excess of alcohol, not excess alcohol. Do the candidates think that there needs to be more drink awareness among sports teams?
Does there need to be more drink awareness? I'd say the answer to that is probably yes. But I don't think we should overlook kind of how important Wednesday night is for, your team camaraderie, your team spirit. And also I think looking from the outside, it's easy to kind of think that there is, a very pressured drinking environment. But as I can speak as a member of the football club, I know we sit kind of close next to the netball. So many people come along, they don't drink whatsoever, they don't drink anything at all. That's not a problem. Circling Wednesday nights are all about team interaction, getting as many people there as possible. It's not just about the drinking, absolutely not. So whilst there can be, more drinking awareness, I think that's more of a university problem, a British problem more generally. I don't think that should just be pinned on sports clubs. But I do think, yes, drink awareness, we can do more. But I would like to kind of, eradicate this perception that circling is, a very pressured drinking environment. So we have so many people that come, don't drink a drop of alcohol, have the time of their lives, and, that's how it should be.
So we have a number of disabled students at Warwick, and what would you do to enable them to participate in sport?
I think the provision for disability sport this year itself has been really good. Obviously, I was heavily involved in the Disabled Sports Festival. We had a great time trying to play blind football, which I can't tell you how difficult that is, how much respect you've got to have for those guys and girls that do that, because it was very scary first and foremost. At the minute, we're doing a disability football, which is every Tuesday night, which we're, as a club, as an individual, getting involved in. And I know there's also a provision for disability swimming. So I think the provisions are there. It's all about promoting it. I think that's the big thing. I think it's very easy for me to just, do exactly what Ruby's done this year, because I think she's done a great job in terms of disability. But of course, we can always do more. But I think promotion is where the key to that answer lies. We need to promote what we already do to a greater degree to get more and more people involved.
So what benefits do you think the introduction of a sports science degree will bring to Warwick?
I'm glad you asked me that one. Obviously, at the minute, in terms of my number one point on my manifesto is kind of improving Warwick's reputation as a top sports university. This university, like I said to you, in what we've got available to us here, it can rival Loughborough, it can rival Bath, as being a university that puts a high degree of emphasis on sport. But that can only happen if we have a sports science degree. At the minute, we get very academic people coming through our doors, some of whom are very good at sport. If you have the academic people who want to do a sports science degree and are also very good at sport, you're automatically going to go from here in the tables up here, because not having a sports science degree at the minute is the thing that is kind of keeping us around the 20 mark at books. But honestly, if we did introduce this, we go up 5-10 places, the possibilities would be almost endless, because having a sports science degree, the intake that you're going to get are going to be so much more sport and focused. The amount of people that want to go into physiotherapy, sports science in general, that have obviously a stronger interest in sport than lots of the academic people here that come here already. So in terms of the ability levels of the people coming in, it's going to improve.
And so the final of the pre-submitted questions: what is your opinion on the current kit consultations and the university rebrand? I think that might have been sent in by the sports officer there.
Opinions on the kits rebrand it's a very difficult one, first and foremost, because it is university-led, very much under the impression it's the university, obviously, that are dictating to us, so there's only a certain amount we can do. However, what we can do is ensure that we do the best possible for all the sports clubs. The long and the short of it is not everyone's going to come out as a winner on this. Some people are going to be upset. That's going to happen. But we've just got to. The sports officer next year has just got to make sure it does their utmost to make sure that everybody is happy as they can be. In terms of colour continuity, I think we should all play in the same colour. You look at Coventry when we play against them, Nottingham, Trent, Loughborough. You automatically know, they're a member of a sports team or whatever. Here we've got teams playing in red, we've got teams playing in black, we've got teams playing in blue. And in terms of kind of improving that Team Warwick brand, which is part of my manifesto, one kit colour is key. What that colour is going to be, I can't answer yet. Obviously, next week, week 9, is another kit consultation, and we'll see where we go from there.
Great, thanks, Alex. So, open up to questions from the floor. Yep, Sam?
What would you do to encourage the representation of liberation communities in sport? So I think you've already addressed people with disabilities, but what about LGBT people? What about ethnic minorities, women, that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course, as I said to you at the start, sport has had a massive impact on my time at Warwick. Without it, I don't know what I would have done. It's improved my university experience exponentially. So I would love to make sure that sport is open to as many people as possible. Again, that comes down to me having an open door policy. People come and speak to me saying, we would like to do this, can you do it? Say yes, no, whatever. But obviously, I'd love to make sure that nobody is being, isolated from participating in sport, because that's not the way to go about it. How we do that, obviously you have to sit down with relevant people and discuss. But yeah, that's definitely something I'd be very keen to do, because like I say, I want as many people playing sport as possible. And as it stands, sport is something the university massively undersells, not just performance sport, but just participation in general. So we will definitely look to address that.
I also want to hold buses to account. This is an issue that affects me and affects everyone else who lives on campus. You miss your lectures, you miss your seminars, you miss your training sometimes, and when you're waiting, there's no one to hold to account. I want to change that. I want to create an app on your phone or a text message service so you can report late buses as you wait, and we can build a real case to slam the bus companies and take account to come the next tendering process. And finally, I want to change Shenandoahs. It's time, it's too expensive, and it's right at the heart of our SU. We can do better than that. I want to create a community-led, cooperative restaurant right in the heart of our SU. So I want a restaurant that serves cheap, warm, lunchtime food. So when you're out in the pool, you've got somewhere to go for lunch, where it's a down-to-earth, safe, friendly, student atmosphere. And I know it can be done. I've seen these restaurants in Berkeley. My friends who said these restaurants are in Monash. I've seen them in Sweden. I've seen them across the UK. We can do it here. If other universities can do it. So don't think twice. Vote right for more accountable buses. Vote right to capital accommodation for people on campus. And vote right to bring communities to Shenandoahs at the heart of an SU that truly serves you. Don't think twice. Vote right as a DDO.
Student politics has been a big part of my life for 2 years now. First as environment and ethics officer, second as your third-year counsellor. This has given me the experience to know how to make effective changes in the union. I've also been on various projects, run campaigns such as Fossil Free No Westwood campaign, organised 2 conferences, and held a union job. This means I know how to manage my time effectively, but also know what matters to students. I have based my manifesto around this. Real policies that will make a real difference. I have split my manifesto into 4 parts. 1, developing your experience. I want to get an alternative career fair onto campus. Involved in the policy making process. I'll run policy workshops each term so you're not excluded by the process. 3, greening your union. I'll make sure every student has access to an ethical guide to university life. 4, keeping your coins safe. I'll get cheaper costs on campus and also employ the living wage in all union outlets. Thank you. Vote me, KTB, on a mission to improve your union.
And Kaio.
Hello, I'm Kai Casa-Sobral and I want to be your next DDO. Vote for me because I want to bring the SU into the 21st century. One of the biggest problems that we have over this century will be obviously climate change. This year the university starts phase 1 of their plan to decrease carbon emissions at the university. But the problem is, even if they do come to the plan, it won't be enough. They'll still miss their targets by 20%, which is not acceptable. I also want to make democracy more. I also want to make democracy more easy to get into Warwick. At the moment, we only really have the ASM, which runs once a term. So I feel like that creating a forum online where everyone can discuss the issues that they think are important for them whenever they want is a step towards a more democratic future for the SU.
And Tom.
Hey everyone, I'm Tom Diamond, and I'm running to be the next Democracy and Development Officer as well, which is probably why I'm here. So I've got 3 main policies which I want to do. First of all, I want to have more cultural events. We're an international university, we need to be an international SU as well. We don't only celebrate Christmas, that's the main cultural event of our year. Why don't we celebrate Diwali? Why don't we celebrate Eid? Why don't we make a big deal of Chinese New Year? These are all international events which need to be celebrated to increase the diversity of campus and make international students feel more at home at our union. Also, student outlets need representation on student council. All the policies which we're talking about today, and a lot of the policies which happen at student council, affect their jobs, their livelihoods, and it's not fair that they don't have a say in what happens. If they don't have a say, then what right do we have, who only consume in those outlets, to dictate whether they should have a job or not? It's just unfair, it's undemocratic, and it's not right. And finally, I want the SABs to get out of their offices more. I think that the SABs need to get out and talk to students. We're a democracy. We shouldn't worry about what students have to say. We should go out and find out what students have to say. 30 minutes every day for the first 5 weeks of term, I will be out on the piazza, rain or shine, listening to what students have to say so that we can start making new policies and changing our union for the better. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm now going to ask a few pre-submitted questions, and which you'll have about a minute, 90 seconds to answer for. We'll start with you, Tom, since you went last there, and we'll mix it up a bit as we go through. So the first question is that in the Students' Union, this year we tried Flirt on a Friday night, and last year we tried Drop on a Friday night, and I'll be the first to say that they didn't go as well as we would have liked them to go. What are your plans for nights in the copper rooms and on campus? And how do you think we can develop a better nighttime calendar at Warwick, or do you think we need to? Tom.
Okay, so this is a really important issue, and a lot of candidates have mentioned this as well. Isaac's got a lot of good policies on this. A lot of the other candidates do as well. I've read all their manifestos. I'd really like to work with them on this. A lot of the things which I'd like to do is more cultural events, as I've said. And these would happen a lot more regularly. Like, every day has a thing. Why don't we celebrate things like Diwali, Eid, or like international days? Like, why can't we have society events in the copper rooms? Why do we have to only have pub nights? Why can we have more non-drinking events? We could have magicians in, we could have hypnotists, we could have loads of things in. But what's important is we do what people want. The reason why these events aren't successful is because we try and go where people don't want. And that's where we should be going. That's what democracy is. We should go out and find out what people want and then do that. That's my opinion.
And Kaio.
I think the problem with Flirt and other nights like Top Banana back in the day is that we are just trying to compete with clubs in Leamington as just being a normal clubbing night, which obviously most of the students either live in Leamington or Coventry, so getting to campus is a bit of a hassle, and there's really, I think, people would find it's not really worth it when you can just go to Neon or Smack if you're on a normal clubbing night. So I feel like the best way to address that would to be better appeal for different evenings, so have something completely different, or to your normal clubbing night, or try and get better attractions like we've been trying to with Professor Green this year, which ended up not happening though.
Katie?
Okay, so I think the problem with things like Flirt and Drop is the advertisement. It's just not there. Pop speaks for itself. Everyone knows what it is. It's popular. You don't have to push it. These events need a real push if we're going to put them on. If I was going to change the events, I would have more social chatting events. So the Real Ale Society was a huge success recently. Sometimes you don't want to go and dance. You just want to go and chat with your friends. So I'd introduce these Also, big nights in the Duck, like karaoke, you're always packed. So why don't we bring that into the copper rooms? We know people love it. We know people would come. It's cheesy. It's fun. Everyone wants to get up and dance. So that's how I'd improve the union nights. Thank you.
And Ollie.
So yeah, building on what everyone else has said, we're missing a real trick here. I mean, Flirt has failed, and for numerous reasons. Top Banana has failed before. It's a sequence of failures on Friday nights here, and we're missing a real trick. Flirt's failed because a lot of international students, I think, have said that it just puts them off the name. As well as that, yeah, I think the Copper Rooms as well does face a lot of competition from the nightclubs in LEM. And I think that it's on my manifesto that we need a refurbishment of the Copper Room so it's a nicer space to use, especially during the day and as well at night. But as well as that, looking at other events at other universities, at Sheffield, what the biggest sellout, longest running night is Pop-Tarts, cheesy night with like 90s, 80s, 70s tunes. It sells out every time. When I was in Sweden, the societies used to run all sorts of events in all the student unions that they had in Sweden. Sell out every time, really got people engaged. And finally, as well as that, big events here include DJs and live bands. So I think we should just take it a bit chill. We don't need a single night for every single Friday. We have pop every Wednesday. Let's diversify it. Let's try a few new things and see what works, and then work on that to try and bring the money in to fund our SU and fund our services. Great.
Okay, well, so we'll start with you, Kaya, for this question. Communication, as Democracy and Development Officer, you oversee the marketing department. And I think a lot of officers and people in the SU will say that communication and marketing is one of the biggest challenges we actually face as a students' union in terms of just getting through to students. What are your plans for improving marketing and communication in the students' union? Kai?
I do think that is a big problem. At least from anecdotal evidence, quite a few of my friends don't really know what's going on in the SU, or even more kind of specifically know what the SABs are doing at the moment. So I feel like it'd be important to kind of bring the SABs out and kind of hold them more into accountability and have an open office hour every week so that someone who wants to come and chat to them knows that they can find them at that time.
Katie.
Okay, so yep, as we said, marketing's a big issue. I've been on a lot of execs, so we obviously face this when we're putting on events. Really good things, gimmicky things, photo campaigns. For the ASM, you could easily get a whiteboard going around talking about why you're going to attend that campaign. You get it tagged, friends see, people come along. Other gimmicky things, I've got the badge. It works really well. You can have stickers. People just need to see it like over 3 times and then it sticks in their head. So that's a really great way. Also, connecting to societies. They will have so much more experience in how to get people involved. So why don't you just see what events on, figure out the societies that will want to help you with that and get them to market with you. Thank you.
Ollie.
Actually, I think Katie said most of what I would have said. Building on that, I have been chair of council this year at the ASM, and this ASM that I chaired was the largest ASM that this union has hosted. And a part of that was really pushing the ASM on Facebook and on social media, getting all the councillors engaged in spreading the message, inviting people to the event, saying what it's about, trying to put sound bites out there, small paragraphs that you can share on what this is about, what this policy is going to be about, what this ASM is about, how to get engaged, and I want to build on that. So I have the experience this year to build on communicating democracy and development next year.
And Tom.
So I did an internship at the university over the summer in the internal communications department. So I know that internal communications is quite a tricky issue. So there are loads of really cool ways which we could try and change communications. One thing we should do is get in touch with Warwick Accommodation. If you live off campus, it's impossible to find out what's happening unless you come into campus and pick up a wall planner. Why can't we work with Warwick Accommodation to either hand out wall planners to Warwick Accommodation properties, or even have somewhere off campus where you could go in Leamington to pick up a wall planner? It'd be a great idea. Also, the website. The website needs to change. The website is not the best it can be. The news carousel, it's impossible to find out what's happening unless you cycle through it all. I went to the Get Engaged sessions. I was the only one out of, I think when I went, there was 3 students there in the first one and 2 in the second one. These events are where we need to find out why students don't get our communications. We need to get more people involved in them. The SABs need to go out more. We need to go out and make a big deal of trying to find out what students want. We're not doing that at the moment. We need to use the digital screens more. We need to use the website more. We need to use an integrated communication system is what we need. And that's what I want to help every single sabbatical officer on that team achieve.
A lot of you talk about prices in your manifestos and how the union should be, the union kind of services that we sell should be cheaper for students. Given that out of the union's £7 million budget, £5 million comes from commercial endeavours that go back into services for students, how do you aim to achieve this whilst keeping the union's income the same, or do you propose cutting union income? And we'll start with Katie.
Okay, so I realise this is a difficult question. You say you're going to cut costs. Where is the money going to come from? Well, I work in the dock, so I know a lot of what people order. It's always the cheap deals. It's always on the bus stop hours. If you're going to increase it, I do believe you're going to get more revenue, and it will just pay for itself. Also, increasing advertisement. You just need to get people at these events. Really, once they're there, once they're eating, they're drinking, you're going to get the money back. So you just need to push people to get to the union, get to the outlets and spend their money. It's our union. They want to take care of it. I'm sure if they realise this, they'll come to our events.
Ollie.
Okay, so this is where my experience really comes to the forefront. As treasurer of a former social enterprise and treasurer of 2 societies during my time here at university, I've really budgeted my manifesto. So when I say I want to introduce the living wage, I mean it. I want to implement it over 2 years, and I want to pay for it with a permanent express counter at the bread oven, which cuts queues, and you pay 20 pence extra to order your baguette ahead of time, and that helps towards paying the living wage. As well as that, Shenanigans cannot be making the most money with what it is. People go there on occasion. They do not go there every single day. I want to change Shenanigans into a cooperative restaurant so that people feel that they can go there every single day on a cold day when they want lunch. They want a warm meal at a reasonable price. And if you get people in there, that's going to start making this SU money. So this is how I budgeted my manifesto. And yeah, there you go.
Tom.
So this is such a really controversial issue that I wanted to try and stay away from it as much as possible. What I think is that outlet staff need representation on council, because we can't be messing around with their livelihoods when we're trying to get cheap popularity tricks like saying I'm going to reduce everything by £1, which has happened in previous years. I wanted to stay away from that. I'm not criticising anyone here. I think everyone here has been really sensible. So what I want to do is expand curiosity. I want to have more tables and chairs in here, so that means that we can sell more drink quicker, people don't get bored of waiting in the queue and go off to Costa or to the university services. We need to expand what we've got first, and then we'll work on building it up. Also, there's that empty space over there. We could use that. We could turn that into, say, I don't know, rented lockers. There's loads of things we could do. Zippies is a really big problem at the moment. Things are going missing. Why don't we start looking into more space, maybe charging societies to do stuff? I don't know. That's a bad idea. I don't like that idea. I came up with that now. That idea has gone. No, societies shouldn't be charged anything. Copper rooms, we need to use that more. Why not rent it out to societies like WFS? They've got loads of money. Economic Society, they've got loads of money as well. Why don't we get them to do events in the copper rooms? Makes us money, makes them more money. It's a great idea. I like that idea. We'll stick with that idea. So, yeah, I think there's loads of things we could do. We'll work it out as we go along.
And Kaya.
I definitely agree with everything that has been said. You can't just say, I'm going to make everything cheaper by £1 and hope to have enough money to run the SU. But I think the main problem is that we don't have a wide enough range of food available price-wise. So I feel like you can go a bit on the lower price end, but also the higher end prices to kind of get the average back to the normal size. Also, I feel like there's a problem with advertising, especially on the lower price deal for foods. I mean, especially the in bread oven. I mean, just about 3 weeks ago, I realized you can actually buy half baguettes for half of the price. And I think that's not really well advertised enough. And it's definitely a big problem finding cheap lunch food on campus.
Okay, I'll start with Ollie for this question. What are your plans to increase engagement in student union democracy?
Okay, this is another strong point for me because I've been chair of council this year and I've been on student council for 3 years. I've seen council at its high and its lows. And basically, based on my experience, I would like to increase accessibility to student council. So I want to increase the number of student council meetings from 2 to 3 per term, but cap the length of meetings to 2 hours. So this means that business can be dealt with more quickly. So when a resolution or policy is submitted, we can deal with it more quickly, and councillors have more meetings that they are able to attend, because a lot do submit saying, I can't make this meeting, and that makes a big difference if they're missing half the meetings of a term just because they missed one. Secondly, I also want the autumn elections to be bigger. I want to give candidates resource budgets, and I also want to make sure that there's a compulsory candidate meeting. If we start with a strong autumn election, then we start with a strong year for union democracy. And as well as that, I want to rewrite the freshers booklets that go out to all freshers before they come to university, explaining the democratic structure and make them think that they could possibly get engaged before they even come here. So I think these are 3 main bases to really build a strong union democracy throughout the year, from start to finish.
Tom.
So I think one of the reasons why the last ASM was so well attended and so popular was that the policies were actually interesting. And a lot of the policies I think we do at Student Council aren't terribly interesting. And I'm saying that as someone who's been to Student Council, as someone who isn't a councillor, but has been to meetings as a student. I've only ever campaigned on one issue in the student politics, and that is the openness and transparency motion. And when I was going around kitchens, people kept saying to me, the SU doesn't mess with me, I don't need to mess with that. Well, when we were around campaigning, we were telling them that actually there are things the student union does that affect you. Things like the society budgets, which should be transparent. Things such as Labour Society only getting £15 this year, the Tories are getting 310. Things like that need to be open and transparent. And it's when people say things like that that people become interested in student politics. We need a more open and more transparent politics, and then people will become interested. That's what I think anyway, so please vote for me if you think that's a good idea.
Kaya.
I think it's a bit funny when my opponent said that the last ASM was well attended, because if you go and look back at the video, you see at most 50 people in here, and I think that's a really big problem. I mean, you can even fit, obviously, everyone even if you wanted to, and I feel like that's one of the biggest barriers against having a bigger kind of turnout in ASM. So one of my main policies is to create a forum on the SU website where we can discuss democracy at any time that's convenient for you. So have something where, you know, or everything that's being put up at ASM, or even things that kind of coming out a bit, you know, more on the underground of politics, and have a place where everything can be discussed openly and at any time, yeah.
And Katie.
Okay, yep. So like Ollie, I've been on council for 2 years, and it's so frustrating when people don't get involved. I mean, there's so many great policies out there, so many avenues they can, so we definitely need to do something about it. Weirdly, exactly like Ollie, I've got a policy to streamline council, having 3 sessions per term as well, capped at 2 hours. Obviously, it's an amazing idea because we both had it, so it definitely should be implemented. We are elected representatives, and if we're being put off by the long, tedious meetings, it needs to be changed. Okay, so people that aren't on council, getting them involved. I'm going to hold termly policy writing workshops. So if you do have an interesting idea, like Tom said, people definitely do, that they can come to me and I will help you write the policy so you don't feel alienated by all these words that you won't understand. Union believes, union resolves. If you're not involved with it, you won't know where to start. I will also create a council handbook for newbies. This will be great for elected representatives because they'll be able to know exactly what the jargon means, exactly what they can do to make a change, but also societies will have access to it because council isn't just for representatives. We have the project fund, you can get involved in different ways, and this should be something that's cleared up for everyone.
Lots of you have spoken about sabbatical officer accountability, saying that sabbatical officers should be more accountable. Given that we struggle to get the turnouts we'd like to at all student meetings, do you think there is a massive demand out there for more kind of information about what SABs are up to, or do you think it's more a case of trying to encourage people to engage in what SABs do
and then giving them the information should they need it. Tom.
Okay, that's a really good question. I think that most people don't get involved with the SABs because they don't know what they do. And I think they don't know what they do because it's very difficult to find them in their offices sometimes. And I think the one thing that could be done to solve this problem would be at the start of term we could have a staff social where you could get to meet all the sabbatical officers and all the staff. I've been on the societies committee. I now know all the society coordinators. Before that, I didn't. And I was really scared to go into the resources room because it's a really big room. You don't know what you're doing. You go in there and it's, you sort of like, hi, I'm Tom, I'm looking for something. It's really scary. And I think that if the SABs got out and actively went to people and said, hey, this is what we're doing, do you think it's a good idea or not? I don't know, you could have people stood on the piazza with like ball pits like they do in the Daily Politics say, is this a good idea? Yes. Is this a good idea? No. We could do things like that. I think that if people start to notice what's happening and feel like it's making a difference, they'll get involved more. And I think that is the way forward.
Kaio.
I feel like it's a big problem when most students don't really know what the SABs are doing or kind of really who they even are. So I would agree with Tom that it's a very important thing to get the SABs out there and try and get them out and meeting with societies and departments to see what they can do for specific groups of students who might not think that they can approach or even know that those would be the people that they should be approaching. Also, my policy of for each SAB holding an office hour, a set hour during the week where anyone can come and see them, even if they don't really know that, you know, this problem would be solved by, in our case, the DDO, but at least somewhere that they can go and talk to someone, and if it's not really our kind of sphere, at least we can, you know, guide them to the right people to talk to.
Katie.
Okay, so yep, this is another big problem. I mean, even campaigning this week, people are like, what is DDO? What does that even mean? And you're like, oh, how can you not get that? So we definitely need to change something. I've also had the idea of SAB's office hour. You need a time every week that you know they're going to be there. It's good to get out, but there's also should be a time where people can come in and see you. I also would propose doing a SAB sum up, which would be a short video at the end of each term, and they can outline exactly what they've been doing. So you can just watch it, 2.5 minutes, doesn't take much time, and you know what your SAB's been up to. And there's so many ideas and so many ways we can improve this. Another thing that come to mind is a manifesto checklist. So instead of having links to your sabbatical offers manifesto, why don't you have a link to a checklist? Have they done it? Where's the progress? Or have they just given it up? Because these are things that people forget about and they really need to be held account. Okay, yep, thanks.
Anole.
So this is quite similar to the previous communication question. I think a lot of progress has been made in informing people about what sabbatical officers do in the last 4 years since I've been here. But saying that, in the first ASM I helped organize at the beginning of the year, the turnout was about average, which is quite low, and a lot of people came up to me afterwards and said, oh, was there an ASM? I didn't know, I would have come. And that really gets to me, helping organize this, and that's why I made such a big effort to make the next ASM as big as it was. But what I want to do is I think we need to start from strong foundations, as I said before. I want larger autumn elections. This is why I want to give candidates a resource budget. Not a monetary budget because the SU can't afford it, but we can afford to give them a flyering budget where we can say you can print up to 50 flyers or such like, or you can take this much cardboard and this much paint. And that means that people, when they see the elections, like they are seeing these elections, they're coming up to candidates and say, well, what's this about? And then we get the chance to explain to them what it's about. They know who's standing, they know where they can vote, and they know who's going to be representing them afterwards. And that starts a strong foundation for the year in terms of communicating who the SABs are, who the councillors are, who liberation officers are, and who the part-time officers are, because they are all very important. They all have a core role to play in RSU.
Okay, that's enough of my grilling, so I'll open it up to the floor. So do we have any questions from the floor? I'd just like to remind people that the questions must be general, applicable to all candidates. So, Carl, wait for the microphone to get to you.
I quite like lager, and I've gotten used to the taste of colic. Terrace Bar only opens at 4 o'clock these days. What are whoever of you is going to win going to do about making it for people like me to get a pint at lunchtime? Because at the moment, it's quite difficult.
Pints at lunchtime, Kaio?
It is my belief and knowledge that the Duck is open from 12, so just go get a pint there.
Katie?
Yep, I mean, I would agree with that. It can't be that hard to just walk around and get the lift, but I agree with your point of it opening early. It's not just about getting a pint, it's having a space for you to eat your lunch, having a space for you to study, having a space for you just to relax and socialize with your friend. The Duck from 12 till 2 is extremely busy, so I completely agree to you. I will try and get Terrace Bar open for more than just getting a pint, but obviously there's that as well.
Ollie?
Yeah, same as the other guys. This SU does a lot to cater towards alcohol drinkers, which is absolutely fine. A lot of us do drink alcohol, and it's great fun. And I did like the old Terrace Bar opening times, though Dirty Duck is also open from 12. So I think it's worth looking into the financial viability of the opening times, not just whether a few people can get a pint at midday. So balance out there. But as well as that, I do want to cater more to non-alcohol drinkers, especially during Freshers Week. There's not enough events during the day, and there's not enough nighttime events for non-drinkers. And I think that's very important.
And Tom?
It's very similar to what the other candidates have said to an extent. I think that one of the problems we've got is that people don't tend to eat lunch at the Duck. Maybe that's because there aren't any deals on. I don't see why you couldn't have a pint and a sandwich for something. Like you can get a pint and a burger in the evening, why not a pint and a sandwich for lunch? I do take the point that it should be open. I don't quite understand why it is shut. Apparently, from someone told me earlier on this week, that it used to be part of Curiosity. And I don't see why that would be such a bad idea if we could have seating for Curiosity upstairs and in the atrium. Like, more space the better. Curiosity is always full. I think we should try and expand what we've got. It's a great resource. If it's viable, I don't see why we couldn't have alcohol served earlier. But I don't see, if the Duck's too full, maybe Carl could come to a focus group or something. I don't know.
You can't leave an open bar unattended, so you need a staff member to be there all the time. So you have to employ someone to do it. But yeah, it's an interesting issue. It is an interesting issue. Yeah.
You'll have a range of policies, which are all great and sound really fascinating. But if there's obviously going to be challenges in implementing them, if you can pick the one thing you think is going to be the most challenging, what's that going to be?
So the policy that will be the most challenging to implement, Katie.
Oh, that's a hard one, Laura. Okay, so probably the most challenging, but the one I'm most passionate about, is an alternative careers fair. So this is something I've actually been working on a lot with Warwick Hub. Felix, I don't know if he's here, but he's been trying to work with Careers and Skills to get this fair up and running in term 2. Problem is that they charge quite a lot to get representation in the panorama room. A lot of industries just can't afford it. So it will be a lot of hard work for me to convince the uni to give that space for the music sector, fashion, loads of different things, non-for-profit. But it's something I'm so passionate, so driven for, that my passion will get it done, regardless of how much of a challenge it is.
Ollie.
So yeah, I'm promising quite a lot in my manifesto, and I realise that. And I'm only doing that because these are the policies I genuinely care about from my 4 years of experience at Warwick, and based on my experience here, I know what I can do when if I get elected and I can hit the ground running. So, what would be the hardest? I think bus accountability would be up there, but it wouldn't be the hardest because I think we are making some traction with buses and bus companies. I think trying to campaign to abolish Erasmus fees would be up there, but not quite the hardest because they're new fees and I think we can get rid of them before they get too entrenched. I think possibly the hardest, will be tackling rising accommodation rents on campus, because a university makes a lot of money there and it's directly out of the pockets of students. The most basic maintenance grant will not cover barely the worst accommodation on campus, and that is unacceptable. And this is a case we need to make to the university. When they're building those new facilities, they will be using them in holidays for conferences. Charge conferences more, not students. And the leverage I want to use is I want to build on the foundation work that the current DDO is looking into on cooperative housing. And the message is this: I want to build a viable business plan for cooperative housing. So if the university won't take action on accommodation prices, the SU will.
Tom.
Okay, so a lot of my policies are actually quite easy to implement. So if you look at them, most of them are communications based as well. So a lot of them can be done by changing the website, which I'm not going to say is easy, but they're all part of an overall plan, which is to try and increase participation in democracy. And that's going to be the hardest thing to achieve, obviously. It's all part of this overall scheme that 5% of people voting shouldn't be enough. And that's what we need to combat. The biggest problem we've got in student democracy is that when something passes, there's always a large amount of people who say that shouldn't have passed, and it shouldn't be policy because it didn't pass by a large enough number, which isn't the right answer. What we should be saying is, well, why didn't you get more of your people to vote against it? So what we need to do is increase participation, and that is the one thing which I want to achieve in my term. And I don't care if none of my other policy get achieved, so long as more people vote in ASMs, then that's all that matters to me.
And Kyle.
I think we can all agree that my hardest, but also the one that I would be most passionate about policy is to make Warwick greener, because it's not something that I can kind of, click my fingers and make it so. It'll take a lot of lobbying the university and a lot of meetings with university senior management. But as I tried to say earlier today, this is the first year of a 6-year plan for the university to try and control carbon emissions. So I feel like now is the time to really get lobbying and try and make sure that the university can reach those targets that are legally binding and their own plan is failing to meet at the moment.
Okay, so we've got time for just about one more question. Yep, Jamie over there.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm the president of the society here at Warwick, and recently we've had quite a lot of trouble with our elections. Luckily Rob's been on hand and he's been great, and I've been able to pop in. So my question is, what would you do with the sports officer and societies officer to ensure that sports clubs and societies have fair and democratic elections?
Ollie.
Okay, so you raise a very valuable point. A lot of societies struggle with conducting their elections. Some societies do have to come to the SU to ask advice when their elections don't quite work, or they don't have enough candidates, or they don't reach quorum on their elections. And I think you raise an important point with societies and sports. What they have at the moment is a committee structure which does seem to work, and they send representatives from the committee to council. Other areas where they've set up committees, it's not worked and it has fallen apart. And I think the Sabbatical have been doing a lot of work to try and find a way forward there. In terms of helping societies with their elections, I have 3 years of experience on council. I'm chair of council this year. I've seen council as it was in the previous format, and I've had to implement the new format of all student meetings and student council and such like. So I feel I've got a real grounding to be able to give actual advice to societies who need it.
Tom?
So I've been on Societies Committee this year, and I've been on 5 society execs, so I understand this problem. It's a huge problem. So one thing which I would do is if any society wanted me to come along to the election, then I would do that. I've done that in the past, and I'll continue to do that again. It's really important that everyone can accept that the result of any election is fair and it's legitimate. That is what's important at the end of the day. So how can we make it better? One of the main problems is getting quorum. A lot of people don't understand quorum. There is now a quorum calculator, which is on the website somewhere. That should be better advertised, I think. But I'd like to work, which Nat did actually, I think. Nat and Ant Scott last year, sorry. So what we need to do, I want to work with the societies officer and the sports officer to make sure everyone understands how it works. And we need to rethink societies, I think. I think that a lot of people don't know how societies work. You join for a few weeks and then you never turn up again, and then that makes quorum really difficult. A lot of people need to understand if you don't turn up to the ASM, then that society is in serious trouble. We need to think about, I want to work with, like, this is the major problem I think the SU has. We need to rethink societies, make them better, make more committed members, and make it their lives easier. Storage space, everything. We need to rethink the entire scheme, in my opinion.
Kyle?
I have some experience with that problem because last year, trying to get elected, we failed to meet quorum halfway through a meeting and it all had to be moved online. So I would think that moving more elections online was definitely an idea to improve this, although I understand that the website can be sometimes needlessly complicated. So I definitely try and work something out with the societies and the sports officer for maybe a workshop so that societies know how to set up things on the website and the importance of reaching quorum. And yeah, I mean, obviously with my open office policy, any society exec could come and chat to me and hopefully the SOCs and sports officer and find out more.
And Katie.
Okay, yep. So one thing that we could definitely do is maybe lower quorum, because a lot of people do just join, especially who have free membership, so it might be really hard to reach. Some other things, yep, coming to advice from how to set up an effective election, like plenty of time for people, plenty of advertisement, maybe incentives like free pizzas, also great. But also working with societies that believe that elections aren't the only way to get your exec members. So Warwick Hub isn't actually a society. One of the reasons we're not is because we have interviews. This can be great. We should maybe lower regulations and maybe smaller societies can conduct interviews instead of elections.
Guys, I'm Nat Panda. I'm running to be your next postgraduate officer. So I'm really passionate about improving the university life for all students and getting a better deal for postgrads. I have the experience. I've been here a very long time. I've also been on many committees, societies committee chair, member of the SU trustees, but most importantly, I have the policies. So, for example, one of my main policies is to get fairer pay for postgrads who teach. So this should be for marking, for feedback, and for preparation. Without it, undergrads' feedback will suffer. So this is something which is well overdue and something I'm really going to push on. Secondly, the new postgraduate loan system will only be available to a fraction of students. Those over 30 international students won't be able to get this postgraduate funding. So something I'll really push for is that the university should maintain the amount it has for funding, but also increase it to allow those from poorer backgrounds to enter the university, as education really shouldn't be a barrier to further study. So of course I'll be pushing for a 24-hour library, everyone will be. I'll also be pushing for a postgrad hub which opens at the weekend, and better hours at the biomed grid too, because the opening hours at the weekend are a bit poor there. Fourthly, I would go with work accommodation. They give postgrads a very bad deal. You have to pay £250 just to apply for accommodation with them, undergrads don't. You also can't stay in your halls in Tossal, for example, until you finish a dissertation. That's very stressful. Finally, I'll talk about buses. Everyone hates having to pay exact change on a bus. This is something I'll campaign to remove. It's not just an inconvenience, it's a welfare issue. So these are just a few of the points in my manifesto. You can check out the rest online. Thanks very much.
Andrew?
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm your current postgraduate officer and I'm standing for re-election. I'm standing for re-election because I love this job. The job satisfaction of being able to actually help students out on a day-to-day basis is so high. The postgraduate officer role starts later than the others, and consequently I've been in the post less than 6 months. However, I've still got a record to stand on. We had a housing crisis at the start of the year and we managed to find over 200 postgraduates houses. We've opened up the first dedicated social space for postgraduates in the Students' Union. And we're also doing large reforms of the SSLC and course rep system in order to empower students even more. Some of my policies are reminiscent from last time. I'm still pushing for extended study spaces, as I have been all year long. We're doing work on 24/7 library. We passed that through the Students' Union with over 1,000 votes for it. Been pushing all year for extended opening hours for the PG Hub. And we've already been working on fair pay and better transparency for postgraduates who teach. So I have the experience, so please vote Andrew for postgrad. Thank you.
And Priska.
Hey everyone, I'm Priska and I'm running to be your next postgraduate officer. I've just taught you through my main policies. There are a few others. The first would definitely be recorded lectures. We need them, especially because a lot of postgrad students, it's for undergrads and postgrads, but postgrad students, the international level is quite high. It takes more than once sometimes for people to really appreciate the lecture and get the most out of their learning. That's why it's one of my main policies. My next has to do with postgraduate integration. We need things like a postgrad ball, things that make postgrads feel more involved in student life. Even in the ball on the election newspaper, it describes the postgrad officer role as representing non-traditional students. We're nearly half the student body. We're not non-traditional students. So that's one thing. I would change that phrase. It needs to stop. My next could be to continue the campaign for better pay for postgrads who teach, equality among the different departments within the university, and incentives around campus for those postgrads who teach. My next would be that we have kitchen facilities in the PG hub. It's really expensive being a postgrad, and we just need something that says, you know, this is your home, this postgraduate home, save some money, make your tea and coffee here. And the next policy is that we have a laptop and phone charger service. I would say this has a business case as well, so it would definitely work. Lost and Found at Warwick have so many chargers, which I've researched this. If we charge, say, £1 or £2 every time you forget your laptop charger that day, all that money will be put back into the Students' Union for you guys. And that would conclude my policies. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a series of pre-submitted questions, and Priska, we'll start with you. So, do you think postgraduates are engaged? Do you think postgrads are engaged as much as they should be in the union? And if not, what are you going to do to get them more engaged?
I would say no, postgrads are not nearly enough engaged. We need to work better with Societies Officer. We need to have things like a postgrad ball, more postgrad events. Orientation week, something that's come up quite a lot. It's very undergraduate focused. What about postgrads? Again, just more and more integration. And that's just communication between officers. And I would also have an open door policy. I think one problem at the moment is departments have welcome talks for postgraduates, but the postgrad officers don't attend these talks. So no one even knows about the postgrad role. They don't know that we're here, kind of thing. So I would go to every department's postgrad welcome talk. I would make sure they knew who I was, and I would have an open door policy so they could come to me if they felt left out in any kind of way and increase that integration.
Andrew?
I think it's fair to say that postgraduates on the whole are not as involved with the union as perhaps we would like. However, let's not underestimate the levels that postgraduates are currently involved. Postgraduates, oh, there we go. Thank you. Postgraduates make up a huge part of our community. They're big parts of our societies and sports clubs. We have lots of our execs that have postgraduate members on. And then you look at the other ways that our postgraduates are involved with the union. You look at the SSLC systems where we've got a huge amount of postgraduate course reps that are actively involved and are helping to improve university life here. We can always say we want more postgraduate involvement here, and we do need to have that, especially from people that are distance learners, people that are based in places like the Shard. But I don't think we should undervalue what the union gives to postgraduates at the moment.
Anna.
I think it's fair to say that some postgrads aren't as involved in the union as we might hope, because the SU has lots of awesome things which they could be involved in. But there has been some progress made already. They're much more involved in societies than they used to be, postgrads. But we have to remember postgrads have different needs to undergrads. There are lots of postgrads I know who they don't need to be involved in societies and sports to feel part of the community here. What they're more interested in is welfare and advice and things like that. It's more to do with the educational side of their courses. Or some of them are looking at a wide range of career options and they want the SU to provide some of that advice, for example. But we shouldn't at the same time be surprised when postgrads aren't as involved in societies and sports, when lots of these societies are quite focused on term time. So it's a bit of an anomaly that we have a student cinema which goes for 3 months in a row in the year without showing a single screening. So I think there's definitely points we can actually improve very easily and increase engagement from postgrads.
Okay, we'll start with you, Andrew, with this one. What steps we would take to represent postgraduates who teach, in and of themselves and also in relation to the low wages that they receive?
I think it's an important point that both myself and predecessor Lucy has been working on. Postgraduate pay is a huge issue for postgraduates. It comes up in SSLCs, but it also comes up outside of that. And I know there's various groups that are meeting in the arts faculty that are really want to see this changed, and they're passionate about it. I think it's an important point to represent. It's been on my manifesto for the past 2 years. We've been working on it this year, and I will continue to push for postgraduates to be paid fairly and for it to be a transparent level of pay as well.
No.
This has been an issue which has been going on for a long time now. It's terrible, really. So to have postgraduate students teach who don't effectively get paid the minimum wage when you include the preparation and the marking and the feedback that they do, it's just unacceptable. What we need to do is to bring this into a full campaign. We can't just go into committees and talk about it. We've got to actually mobilise people, and this is the way we're going to speed things up. It's not right. It wouldn't happen if these were full members of staff. It's just unacceptable. So until we can actually get fair pay for postgrads, I'm just going to keep pushing and pushing. This is one of the points I feel really strong on. So.
And Priska.
I think the first step now moving forward, yes, we've continued to campaign for it, would be to create more awareness and transparency. If people knew the inequality between various departments, then more people would be involved in the issue. It's all well and good campaigning, but you need to raise awareness in order to make progress. I would get the postgraduate student body more involved in that issue by creating e-petitions and things like that on the student website, so they can get more involved about something they believe so strongly in, and then hopefully we can make better steps for progress for postgrads who teach.
So the student union has opened up a space specifically for postgraduates called the Graduate. Is the Graduate working? If not, why not? And what steps we would take to improve its success? Nat.
Okay, so I think it's great that postgraduates do have a space in the union. I mean, it means that we, as an SU, that we are taking it seriously, that postgraduates make up a lot of our community. However, I think we maybe jumped the gun a bit. So we thought it'd be great to have a space for students, but we didn't actually ask postgraduates really what they wanted, and I still don't think we really know. So what I'd like to do is actually to get more postgraduates involved, find out what they really want with this space and how we can use it best for their needs.
Priska?
I personally do love the Graduate, and I use it, but I would note that when I do go with my friends, there's no one else there. It's not used enough because there's no awareness of it. So that's what would need to happen again, promoting it. I think there's a kind of coffee facility in there, but you have to put coins in, and it's generally disgusting and not very nice. So I think we need better coffee and tea facilities in there to make it more homely for postgrads. It's a really nice space to learn perhaps we could have more resources in there. And I think a lot of people find that, people I've spoken to find it's still got like a commercial background to it. You've still got to buy drinks in the Duck. And I would say we just need to have more use of it, more promotion of it, you know, awareness really. But it's a nice space and we should continue having that graduate space.
And Andrew?
Yeah, I think the graduate is a little bit underused at the moment. I think we need to get more use out of it in a day, and I think part of that means needs to be staffed all the time. We need to also have journals, newspapers, and get a book swap going in there. But I think it is working in some aspects. We've had great link up with the PG Hub in there, and we've had some fantastic events. We had Chinese New Year last week. Before that, we've had various welcome drinks and events. We had a great poetry night in there as well, which all attracted 50, 60 postgraduates as events. So as a space, I think it's growing. We need to publicise a bit more, as Priska says. However, I think it's getting there.
Year on year, we see postgrads applying to Warwick and then not having any accommodation on campus, and also being really struggling to find accommodation off campus as well. It's known in the union as the postgrad housing crisis. What would you do to make sure and to alleviate the symptoms of the postgrad housing crisis, Priska?
This is an issue I can personally talk about. I did not find accommodation on campus, and none in general, to be honest. I know a lot of students in the same position who commute in from quite far away, some Nottingham, Manchester, Cheshire, down south. And I think what we need to do is have a week for just postgrads. Again, if orientation week was more postgrad oriented, like a meet and greet where you can meet new people and you arrange house shares there and then. It's an intimidating thing to think, oh yeah, I'll go for that room, because you don't know who you're sharing with. You don't know the people when you sign up. If there was a meet and greet session, even if it was just for an hour or two where people could meet each other looking for accommodation and it was well promoted, that would really help on the issue. I think that's the main issue really. And I also think if I, as postgrad officer, I'd attend the welcome days for each department, and it's there I would have the opportunity to say, look guys, I'm in the SU, come and see me if you've got any problems with accommodation. Because when I had the problem, I didn't know who to turn to. I phoned the university, I phoned the main desk, they put me through to someone else, who put me through to someone else, and in the end I gave up. So I would say that would be a big help. Thanks.
Andrew?
It's an issue we shouldn't have to have. It was an issue that I had to deal with at the start of the year, seeing so many postgraduates that were really stressed out because they didn't have anywhere to live, and they were coming to a new country often, because most of them were international students for the first time, and they're having to go out and find houses to live. We shouldn't be in a situation, a leading university like this, where we've got postgraduates coming for the first time, being completely disoriented, and then not having anywhere to live and having that massive stress. We need to be better. We need to have more accommodation here at the university, more accommodation for postgraduates. Perhaps we need to look at how much accommodation we are allocating to postgrads. And we need a longer term plan with that. And in the short term, the university needs to look at getting more off-campus accommodation that they can house postgrads in. There needs to be better communication about the areas that are here, because there's not any information for international students before they come about the different areas around. And so we have people trying to only want to live in Canley because they think that's the only option. So I think we've got to push the university to make sure that accommodation is sorted right, and then we've got to make sure that the communication is there well before people arrive.
And that.
Well, I think Warwick accommodation really need to pull the finger out. They're understaffed. They've known that for so long now. The university hasn't got enough time to even prepare properly for the postgraduates who are coming. It's ridiculous. This isn't the first time. It's just another example of postgrads being put to the bottom of the pile. So how do we improve this? Well, for a start, you need to let postgrads know sooner rather than later whether or not they've got the accommodation. And then when Warwick Accommodation does say no to someone, they shouldn't stop there. It shouldn't be left down just to the SU to help postgraduates find new places. Sure, the SU can help, but the Warwick Accommodation needs to take on more responsibility here. They have a duty of care to students and future students. That's my belief, and I think this is something we should really push on.
It looks like the government's taken a step towards postgraduate funding. What's your analysis of this and what it means for postgraduates at Warwick? Andrew.
I think it's a great step forward. I know from my own experience, I had to take my master's degree part-time because I couldn't afford to pay for it all up front, and the only alternative was a career development loan that I'd have to immediately start paying back in the September after I finished, a rate of about 14% APR, which isn't a situation a lot of people can put themselves in. I think with the incoming loans, it sort of allows more access for people that perhaps wouldn't be able to afford it up front to be able to come into it. However, there are limitations on it already that we're seeing that are going to put certain people out of postgraduate education. Those that are over 30 won't be able to apply for it. And there's also other restrictions based if you're from Scotland and Wales as well. For the next coming year, we've got the HEFGI money, where we've got various amounts of £10,000 bursaries, which will allow people to come to university, especially as it's the aim of widening participation, which is what I think is great. We need to make sure that the postgraduate education, there aren't barriers for various students to go on to. And so I welcome it, but I think we still need to continue to push for greater access for everybody.
No.
£10,000, sure, it's a contribution, but we know that some of the degrees at this university are very, very expensive. It won't even cover some of the fees, let alone living costs. So whilst obviously it's a step in the right direction, this isn't access to all for education, and let's make that very clear. There's also a danger that with these new loans coming in, the university will stop the current £600,000 of funding it's giving and say, well, the government's sorting it out now. So we've really got to be on our toes here and make sure that the university sticks with its £600,000 and actually increases it to have some true widening participation. Thank you.
Priska.
I have a few problems. The whole blocking people over 30 is just wrong. It's age discrimination. A lot of people do take time out, have families, and then go back to postgraduate education. So that's something we need to lobby for, it to be extended to all ages. Discrimination of that form should not exist. I personally am a Warwick scholarship holder, and I understand what that can mean to someone. So I would promote to extend that and increase the funds available for people, which I'm currently promoting anyway. So I would continue to lobby for that. I think postgraduate education, we take into account the course fees, but not the accommodation fees. So we need the loans to represent not only tuition fees, but also accommodation fees. And that's something which I would try and promote.
Okay, so I'm going to open up to questions from the floor. They've got to be applicable to every candidate, so you can't target a specific candidate. So do we have any questions from the floor? No? Yep, Alex.
Yeah, is it working? Okay. As someone who's applying for like a postgraduate for next year, I've been trying to look for sort of funding for like doing the postgraduate, and like most of the funding now, it comes from the universities themselves, but there is funding that's available that's not from universities, and it's not that transparent, like where to find it and such forth. I found something called the Alternative Guide to Postgraduate Funding that was quite useful, but the Warwick University doesn't like provide any like assistance to get it. Some other universities provide a free subscription, like Manchester does. But in general, like what could like the SU or like could the SU either lobby the university to like provide more information about where you can find funding, or could it like provide some like information itself? Like, is there things it could do to help that? Because it is quite a big issue, especially when even if you're just applying for university funding, you need like you might need like to show that you've tried to get funding from elsewhere to like improve your chances of getting funding, and that is a big issue. So is there like more that could be done? Yeah.
So the information on how to access postgrad funding, Nat.
Well, I think the university wants as many students to come and study here as possible. So I think you're right. If it doesn't give enough information at the moment, which it doesn't seem to, then I think this would be an easy win. I think they'd encourage it. If people can get money from somewhere else, I'm sure the university would be happy to allow their money to go to someone who isn't able to access that funding. So yeah, I think it's a great idea and something which, again, like I said, is an easy win.
Priska?
I would probably make the SU website clearer and have a specific page on postgrad funding where all the options were available in a simple form and a simple layout. Again, we need to try and promote the use of the SU Facebook pages and maybe set up a postgrad SU page. And when people are, prospective applicants, they can like the page and we can promote from there.
And Andrew?
I think it's a huge issue that's faced by a lot of undergraduates here that are looking to go into postgrad study. I've got a couple of friends that I know that are applying for postgraduate level study, and they found it really difficult to find out how to get into postgraduate education, but also how to fund it. And some of them have only recently found out things like that if you get a first, then you can get 50% off with WBS master's degrees. There's a lot of information out there, and I think it's so diffuse. When you look at the number of postgraduate websites that are on the university site, I think we have something like over 750, which is crazy. We should really try and centralize all of this information on one place. Probably, the graduate school website would probably be the ideal place, so that we have all of the information of the funding that's available at a university level, department level, and outside bodies and research councils, and also a quick and easy guide on how to apply for postgraduate education.
Okay, other questions from the floor? Yep, Kat.
Hello. Hi. So there's lots of sort of reports on the issues, particularly mental health issues for postgraduate researchers. What do the candidates know about this, and what would they do to prevent mental health getting worse amongst PGRs?
And that's Priska first.
In terms of mental health, that's something someone on my campaign team's brought up. There needs to be something more focused towards postgraduates for mental health, because a research master's for example, can be a very, very lonely place. There's not the same amount of contact time, and it's a very common issue. That there's been a lot of research this year on that issue, and mental health issues are on the rise in postgraduate education. So I would probably promote this at all postgraduate events, have posters up, promote a Facebook page, and have a specific place where people can turn to as postgraduates if they're facing problems or they feel alone or isolated. It's very easy to fall into. I have met a lot of people just on my course who they're international students, and they've come to me and said, I've got no friends, I've got a flat where I live on my own, I don't speak the language, I can't meet people in a lecture, what do I do? Didn't know about sports, didn't know about societies, was really isolated. So I think it's a mixture. I think mental health can sometimes, it needs communication. We need to communicate with the societies and promote the whole inclusion issue would help, but also have a specific place where people can come to. Maybe that could be a use of the graduate, that one day a week there's a mental health day where postgrads can go and just talk to someone. We have like an in-house counsellor or someone just there to talk to.
Andrew?
I think it's a big issue. It's a big issue that we see across the country, where I think we can probably say that mental health provision at universities just is not good enough wholesale. I think in what we need to do here is, last week we had a mental health awareness day, and we've had various wellbeing days as well, which are fantastic. They're currently held in the day. Not all postgraduates can make them, so I think we can, as a students' union, look to extending them to other times and other days where it's more accessible for postgraduates, and then we can communicate better when these are going on. But I think as a whole, we need to press for greater mental health provision across the university to help both postgraduates and undergraduates.
And that.
Like everyone else said, this is a huge issue. It almost doesn't go a week without one of my colleagues experiencing something like this or needing someone to turn to. There are 3 very easy things we can do. Firstly, everyone who's a PGR should be assigned someone who isn't their supervisor for pastoral care. So we're talking about a personal tutor or a mentor. It's so important to keep that boundary. Secondly, if it does become necessary to disclose your problems that you're having to your supervisor, well, supervisors need to be trained to be sensitive to actually know what to do in the situation. They need to make reasonable adjustments so you can carry on with your work if necessary, or take a break out of study if that's better for you. And thirdly, bringing the wellbeing drop-in sessions across campus. So it's not just about timings, it's about where they are. For those in Gibbet Hill, having to get over to University House to go for the wellbeing drop-in session is no good. So I'd like to see that extended to this side of campus and up to Gibbet Hill.
Other questions from the floor? Yes, Amelia.
So last year I worked with international postgraduate students, and what I found out was that most of them had no idea that they were being represented, and most of them had no idea some of them actually didn't even know that there was an SU. And some students never go through the atrium. You talked about the Mental Health Awareness Day. It was held in the atrium. How exactly are you going to address and communicate with those students who do not know anything about the SU and maybe never go through the atrium during the day?
Andrew.
I think it's a valid point, Amelia. I think it's something we need to look at more in terms of our communication to our postgraduate students and our international students, because I think at times at the Students' Union we don't do it as well as we should do. We should be getting an international tab up on the Students' Union website, but that isn't what it should be, just left at. We should be proactively going out there to try and make sure that people know that the Students' Union is here for them. We have a fantastic advice centre, so if people ever need help with that they have that, and that they have individual officers that are going to represent them and to try and make the best of their time here.
No.
Yeah, so this is a tough one, but firstly I'd work with the international officers to actually understand, try and get a feeling of why the engagement is currently failing, and if they have any ideas how to engage better with international students. But that's all okay, but we need to actually engage them before the elections are held in the autumn as well. So I think it's a really tough one. I think we need to look at our literature. We have the information about who are international students, who aren't. We need to tailor the literature we send out to these students before they come, so we can break down the whole concept of a students' union to international students, as not everyone will be familiar with it, and then outlining what we do as an SU and how we are there for them. So that'd be how I'd try and engage international students better.
And Priska.
Most of my friends here are international students, and it really, really frustrates me that this is an issue. And that is why I want to attend the department welcome talks, because that is your key to reaching all those international students, so they know where to find you. That would be the first step for me to do that, because you're right, they literally don't know that the position exists, that they have that person there for them. So they're always at the department welcome talks, so if you're there, they're going to meet you, they know where you are, you're friendly and approachable, you have an open door policy, they'll feel that they can turn to you then.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, Miguel? Do we have a microphone for Miguel? It's been a long day for the returning officer.
It's okay. Hi. So you've all made a number of policy promises that can perhaps be very hard to achieve, you know, that they're not going to give you straight away on a silver platter. How would you say you distinguish yourself from the other candidates in how you're going to achieve them, you know, how you're going to make them an achievable promise?
So how are your policies achievable, Nat?
So I'd have to say that the way I distinguish myself from perhaps the other candidates, or at least I can talk about myself anyway, is that I have a strong campaigning background. So I think to achieve change and to implement policies, it's not just about going to committees and sitting in there getting your voice across. In fact, if you don't ask, you don't get. But you've got to do more than that. You've got to demand. You've got to build the pressure you're on. You've got to make it in the interests of the university to actually make the changes you want to deliver. So, for me, my campaigning background is the reason why I feel like I can achieve most of the things in my manifesto, and would certainly work towards all of them.
Priska?
I think these policies, I wouldn't say distinguished, but I have made sure all my policies have a business case, because it's all right campaigning, but if your policies are naive, like it's all right saying, oh, we get free this, let's campaign for free that. The university, as much as you lobby, they don't want to lose money. The union, we need the money for the students. So I would say things like the laptop phone charger service, it has a business case and it creates a win-win situation. So it's not just the students who win, the union win. They get some money back. And that's what you need in your policies, a win-win situation, because then they'll be effective. You don't need to campaign as much if everyone's a winner. It's done. The phone and laptop charger service, students benefit. They only pay £1 or £2 to have a charger for the day when they forget it, and then they can do their work. The union benefit because they get that £1 or £2 and they put that back and give it back to the students. So that would be why my policies are distinguishable.
And Andrew?
I'd say there's two reasons. The first is experience. I am the current postgraduate officer. I know how it all works. And we've been working on a lot of the policies already this year, and I will continue to push through them in my time in this year and then hopefully next year. The second is passion. I love representing students on a day-to-day basis, and I absolutely love trying to help make people's lives here better. And I will do that. I will continue doing that in all of my time here, and I think that is a huge reason that will help change things and improve it.
Hi guys, so I'll just smooth this up a bit. I'm Isaac, so I'm currently the Societies Officer here and I'm running to be President this year. So I've really enjoyed my time so far as an officer, looking after over 250 societies. I really want to use the experience I've gained this year to stand as President. So I've led with kind of a top 5 policies, which I'll go into detail with in these 2 minutes. So starting with the buses, I want to tackle the current situation by offering a refund for students whose buses are over 50 minutes late. It currently exists in Transport for London. I want to bring it here, working with the university and with MPs to make it happen. Secondly, university management. So I want to set up a termly question time with the Vice-Chancellor so that your views can be conveyed directly. Third of all, I want to continue the great work we've done this year with the Freshers' Week. So pushing for that free of lectures and seminars to help first years settle in properly. Fourth of all, nights out. So I want to consult students on what they want their copper rooms nights out schedule to look like. So it's more than just pop and school days. And fifth, I want a little bit more transparency about the Warwick Sport Review so that you guys know why the prices have gone up and the benefits that have come from it. So I really feel that I can use my experience from this year to be a really good president and represent you in the best way possible. So yeah, I'd urge you to vote Isaac for president to make your voice louder. Thank you very much.
Andy.
So this might be a bit weird, but I've decided to do a bit of an experiment in student involvement. So I'm just going to ask for you to repeat what I say when I put my hand out. I won't say anything weird, and I won't make you say you're voting for me, I promise. Just as a quick example, Warwick SU are awesome. Okay, here we go. I am somebody. I am. And louder this time, I am. These words have been fed to me. These words have been grown organically, just right. Chewed up, taken in, spat out by me. Do you see? Their truth seems to be in repetition. Tradition is we are conditioned into submission until we make an admission of their value. It's like, these words are true because I say they are, and so did my father who taught me. I am somebody. Intoxicating, isn't it? The roar of the crowds whose words have been ploughed and plucked and primed for positivity. Let me proposition you this. You are somebody. And that statement is true, but not for the reasons you think. You are a mix of memories, mentors, mentees, t-shirts, cardboard, and mess. Some of these make you somebody. Not the shout-outs of being somebody, but the physical act. Now, tell me again, and not because I tell you to, but because I need to know that you matter. I am somebody. The sad truth is this. Some people hardly know how to exist unless they are wanted. They are wanted. Now, tell me again, and not because I tell you to, but because I need to know that your roots are deeper than words. The new voters are more than just first preferences, because who you are wanted. Turn to the person to your side and we'll prove it. So if you'd all just pair up quickly.
I'm afraid that's time. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Dan.
Hi everyone, how's it going? My party trick is juggling and I haven't got any balls, so I can't do it. That was sick. I didn't know you're a slam poet. That's good. Competition. Yeah, so hi, I'm Dan. I'm a third-year mathematician. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience at Warwick and then what I want to do with it. So I've been the Ethics and Environment Officer this year. So I've got a lot of experience of SU structures and their democratic processes and also its potential and its limitations. I think I can do a lot with that. I've had a lot of experience with political activism at Warwick, with pushing for divestment with the fossil-free campaign, with fighting for free education, with Warwick Free Education, etc. And I want to bring that into the job as well. A lot of those things are still important to me and will remain so as a campaigning president. I was a worker at Bread Oven Curiosity, Arts Centre steward. I've worked in the sports centre as a climbing instructor. So I've been all over the place on everyone's payroll, and I've seen what it's like to be a student working in different domains. I've also just organised the Warwick Climate Forum, so I have some kind of organisational ability, and been involved with People and Planet, organising things like that. So what I want to do, it says on these flyers, I've got like a 6-point plan. They're like A7s, so you've got to squint. Yeah, I want to mobilise the union, because I think it's an inherently political device, and we should emphasise that. We should draw together as 24,000 students that we are and exert our collective will on the government, on university management, on anyone who stands in our way in achieving things like free education, in fighting for the living wage for students and workers at this university, in supporting industrial action by workers at this university, so they feel comfortable doing that and that students are by their side, because a university is made up of its students and its faculty, and management are there to facilitate their interaction, and that's my understanding of it. I want to start, as I said, I want to secure the living wage. I want to crack down on living costs on campus. It should be much cheaper to live here, and it's hiked up by far more than inflation every year. I think getting rid of things like benefactors, taking that out of circulation is a really bad move, and I will fight for new builds that are cheaper, and also to reduce the cost of living on campus, including, if necessary, organising rent strikes and things like that. How long?
Time.
Oh, fuck it. All right. Sorry, thank you. Vote for Dan.
And Stanley.
Oh God. I feel like I should give up after that. That was amazing, really. Hi there, I'm Stan. I'm running for SU president as well. Obviously, else I wouldn't really be up on this podium here at this, what is it, hustings or question time, whatever you may call it. It would be really silly, really, if I wasn't running for president, I was up here. In fact, it would be probably quite cruel if they let me come up here and I wasn't running for SU president. I mean, come on, if I wasn't running for anything, why would they even let me up on the podium? That would be very silly, and I'd probably look very, very stupid. How long is that? Is that about 30 seconds? Okay, so, okay, so some of my points, communications, relations. I just want to improve communications, make things more transparent and clear when they're happening. Relations or relationships, not personal ones. Just have a better relationship with the students and staff, with the SU, etc. And inspirations, I guess. I don't know why I ordered them into 3 things, because inspirations is quite a broad thing. I just want to do a lot of things that are a little bit simple, a little bit silly, I guess, but kind of make people more interested, maybe want to get more involved in the SU, and that's kind of what I stand for. I'm wearing a dressing gown. How long has that been now? Is that an hour? Is that a minute?
30 seconds left. If you
30 seconds. I do maths. I'm second year maths. I wear glasses. I like Pokemon. I like cats. I drink tea. I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll start with you, Stanley, for this question. If the candidates could single out an issue that would be the most important to students at Warwick over the next 18 months, what would it be?
Could you repeat that, perhaps?
So, if you could single out an issue over the next 18 months that will be most important to students at Warwick, what would it be?
18 months? In the next 18 months, okay. Oh, all right. Most important issue. I suppose it would probably be transportation. What with building going on in Tosser Field, the roadworks which are currently there, I expect there would be transportation, quite rationally. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much. I don't know what else to add to that. Is that good? Okay, all right.
Dan.
Hello, I'm back again. Okay, what's the most important to students? I think most important to students is the ability to get on a university, like to actually buy food, etc. General day-to-day existence. I think the spectre of debt that hangs over them is a problem, but I think more immediate problems are things like, oh, I can't buy food because my living situation is too drab. For example, like fuel poverty is a problem among students, and I want to deal with that by removing the exploitative relationship people have with their landlords. By, for example, developing the housing co-op that Rob has been working on this year. And I want to have a cost-price essential store for things that are absolutely essential to students on campus that will also undermine another exploitative relationship that we have with the Roots grocery store. And obviously the campus stuff that I mentioned earlier. Thanks very much.
Andy.
I think it's great how much the candidates have in common. I also like Pokemon. And like Dan, I think it's really important that students are given a fair deal across campus. And I think it's the perception of fairness for what people are getting for their money across campus. That is admittedly a bit of a false answer, in that it applies to several fields, including accommodation and transport and the Roots grocery store. But I just think it's justifying costs where they have increased and limiting costs where they need to be limited to make sure that students feel like they are getting a fair deal. Not a better deal, but a fair one. Thanks, guys.
And Isaac.
Yeah, I think the candidates pretty much got nicked the nail on the head, really. I think I'll go with transport because that's a day-to-day issue. You can say what's the most important thing over the next 18 months. I think actually students being able to get around and to buy things and to live is the most important thing. So I'll go with transport. That's something we've worked really hard on this year with the taxi campaign. Students feeling safe at night, students feeling safe getting around. We've made loads of progress on that. That's not going to go away. Students are going to keep wanting to travel, keep travelling late at night, but also in the day, and that's where buses come in. And that's where I think there's so much work to be done. in terms of making students feel like they can get to their lectures and seminars on time. They don't have to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get in for a 9 o'clock lecture. And that's about working with the university, working with MPs, working with different people and different stakeholders to make sure that we can make change together. That's the only way we're going to do it. So to pin it down on one thing, transport's not going to go away. It's always going to be relevant, and I think there's loads of work we can do as a students' union on that.
Communication is one of the biggest challenges that the student union faces year on year. Getting its messages that it puts out to students and getting them to listen. What are your plans for how to improve communication with students at the student union should you be elected? Dan.
All right, some of the stuff I put in my manifesto is I want to have regular AMAs on Reddit. You guys heard of Reddit? It's a thing. Personally, that is, and like also Twitter time. So I think more people tweet, and it's a good way of interacting with people. But primarily, and I've got this in my manifesto as well, I want to roam the campus and have surgeries in different areas, like including Gibbet Hill, for example, at different times. And that's just about like me to students. But also, I think that the SU needs to exercise much more control over its viral presence, and that, like, you know, it's a given. We all know that. But trying to do something about that, I think, is powerful. And also, taking hold of the all-student email and using that to a larger effect, and like not for like Deutsche Bank advertisement, etc. I think that could be quite a powerful way to go. And that's all I have to say at this current time. Thank you.
Andy.
So I have a dual answer to this question. The first of which is tailored marketing. I think that students should only be getting the messages that directly apply to them. So Gibbet Hill changes should be advertised directly to Gibbet Hill students and not to other people. And the second is a type of communication that I have seen through RAG presidency to be by far the most effective, which is text messaging. I feel like students would be willing to give the SU their mobile phone number, and the most important messages every term would be text to them, maybe a maximum of 3 times a term with an unsubscribe service to make people feel more comfortable. But I feel like texting them the most important changes that they need to be aware of, such as the bus route changes, would be really, really beneficial. Thank you.
Isaac?
Yeah, I think one of the things we always say is that as officers, we're kind of, I guess, the faces of the union. And whoever's elected, we always say need to get out more and talk to students. I think that's something that will always ring true, being out there, being vocal, being available to chat, not feeling like we're locked away in the offices. You have to make appointments with us. That's really important. I think that you can feel like you can drop in and talk to us about the issues. In terms of communications and making them clear, the SU is in a difficult position because we try and do so many things. We try and put on sports, societies, try and push on education issues, welfare. We want to be everything to every single student. So I think what Andy said was actually bang on. We need to kind of make sure that we're tailoring messages to students, making sure that they're receiving the messages that are relevant to them. Because we find a lot of the time that what we're trying to do is so many things that they get lost. So I think it's about really being quite strategic about saying what do we want to achieve this year, what do we want to achieve this particular week, and just make sure that our messages aren't getting lost, because we do try and do a lot, we do try and do everything we can for students, and sometimes the communications can be lost.
Stanley.
Communications is huge, really. It's a huge area. Various different forms of which you can contact people. Once upon a time, it used to be just word of mouth, and now we have all the social medias and all sorts. Now, I'm not going to act like I have a true understanding of how big or how much the SU really gets into all this. So it would really require like a better understanding of how we actually get into contact with various students, and well, just improving on that, really. Emails, I feel like I get too many emails. And they're not really clearly laid out, and I don't want to scroll through them. But every area can really be improved, and that's the way I'd go about it. I'd use social media more so, but it's really just a case of just understanding where we are at now, what we actually use at the present time, and build on that. Right, thanks.
What are the presidential candidates' opinion on boycotts? Is there anything that you passionately feel the SU should be boycotting at the moment that it isn't? Andy.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question for me?
So what are the candidates' opinions on boycotts? And is there anything that you feel the SU should boycott at the moment that it isn't currently doing so?
I feel like in the role of presidency, my political views are less important than the political views of the people in this room. I feel like any boycott should come from the students, not from the head of its students' union. I would support any boycott that I thought had a large number of students on campus promoting it, but I wouldn't lead any myself because I don't feel like that's my place. I feel like it's the political views of those I represent that need to be represented, not my own. Thank you.
Isaac?
Yeah, we're a membership organisation. We've got about 25,000 students here, and everything we do, you are our bosses. That's the beauty of being the SAB, is that we're driven by what you say. So if you want us to do something, you tell us, and you tell us very clearly. We have student council, which policies pass through. We're mandated to follow that policy. So if there's something you feel strongly about, there's so many mechanisms, student councils, all student meetings, or just getting in touch with us and being vocal. And our job is to represent what you think and what you believe. So if there's enough voices shouting for something, we're going to make sure that that happens, because that's what we are, to represent you.
Stanley?
It's an interesting question, really. A couple of years ago, we boycotted Bacardi, didn't we? And recently there was a motion to boycott some water company or something, and that turned into a heated debate. And it's quite interesting, really, that people get into these arguments about trying to make a stand against corporations. Where would I stand on it? I'm not sure. It would really depend on the majority of what people think, because I don't really feel boycotting is a particularly well developed way of going against something. But yeah, it really depends. I think that's my answer. That was my answer for the last question. Brilliant. Okay, yeah, it just depends. It just depends.
And Dan.
Hi guys, as I said earlier, I think the SU should be a much more political force to be reckoned with. And I think you should vote for me because you think my politics are bang on, and I will represent those politics in office. And so I will embody political views. You will still be the boss of Goss, so you can boss me around through the ASM method if you so choose. But I think first and foremost you should be voting for me because you agree with what I say in my manifesto and because you acknowledge the legitimacy of my position on political issues. I fully support boycotts. I think they're an effective method of bullying companies who are doing completely abusive things to humans and the environment. Part of my policies is that I will break the chain on SU procurement. So that involves doing a proper analysis of where we get different things from, for example, in bread oven, and eliminating human, non-animal environmental abuses as best as possible from those chains while maintaining economic viability. So that's what I have to say on that. Thanks very much.
What will you be doing to combat racism and sexism on campus, Isaac?
Okay, so I don't think we can ever be complacent on either of those issues. I think we made huge strides in modern society, but they're still prevalent and it's still a danger. So I think the most important thing we can do is to not let up. So we've got some fantastic student societies, first of all, who I've had the pleasure to work with this year, Warwick Anti-Racism, Warwick Anti-Sexism, who are really vocal, and we need to involve them from the top as well. We need to be working with security to ensure that they're aware of all the people that are going to be on campus, whether it's external speakers or people who are outside the university who could pose a danger to students. And I think we need to be really tuned in to some of the issues that are arising. So, for example, the counter-terrorism bill, whether that has undertones of Islamophobia, and being aware of how our students feel. Our students should feel safe on campus. That's absolutely paramount to us being at a successful university. So I think, in short, the answer is to not let up and not think it's going to go away, because it hasn't.
Stanley.
Very big issues. But of course we can't. that wasn't sarcastic, if that's what you thought. Okay, so any sort of discrimination is a very problematic thing, and we should always aim to eradicate it. Always aim for equality. But I don't really have any new solutions, really. That's the issue. I think just carry on with what we're doing. Mainly what Isaac said. I don't have a very, I guess it's partially because of my own bias, but I don't have a strong position on it. And I guess we just need more people with the proper bias towards this problem to actually get them in and give the proper methods of action to use, I think, in those sort of certain cases. I'm not going to be totally familiar with these issues, being who I am, and so therefore we need people with a proper bias. There we go.
Dan.
Hi guys. First of all, in terms of like practicalities, I will be fully supporting and redoubling efforts to make sure the SU venues are zero tolerance to all oppression and harassment, because I think that's fundamental. You should be able to go on a night out without having to face up to any of that kind of thing. And I want to work with WAS, etc., who've done work with regards to I Can't Consent and Good Night Out campaigns, and the Women's Officer to really bolster their effect and their availability to all freshers, which will be part of what I want to rework freshers a little bit and include some more workshops and things like that. I want to support liberation groups in all their struggles, because I think that's a fundamental role of the president, particularly because they represent minority voices in the SU. And if necessary, I'd like to allow them to have more liberation officers so they can share the workload if they feel that's necessary. I think we need more diversity in office, which this stage is an example of, or evidence for. And Kat can testify. I think we need to talk about police oppression and its institutional racism that's tied up with the police, and especially with regards to activities that went on in December and the brutal eviction of students during a peaceful protest. And I think we need to talk about why our curriculum is so white, which is a popular campaign at the moment, and why black professors are so absent from the academy. And so these are themes on which I'll work. And I think this is really, really pivotal point. So I'm glad it was raised. Thanks.
And Andy.
Okay, so firstly, I want to thank you for a fantastic question. And secondly, I have two policies, a pre-incident and post-incident policy. Pre-incident, I think it's really important to ring-fence funding for campaigns such as Black History Month, such as ISOC Charity Week, such as I Heart Consent, that break down the barriers and help teach people about these groups. And secondly, post-incident would be a code of conduct for not just security, but importantly security, and also other SU staff to listen, believe, enact, and investigate in that order. If someone feels unsafe, regardless of the reason, they should be moved. They should not be told to find somewhere else to stay for the night. They should be moved, for example. I think it's really important that a code of conduct about sexism and racism is built into. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so that's the end of the pre-submitted questions. We're going to open out to the floor, so people in the audience can ask you own questions. The questions, can I just remind people, must be tailored not to any specific candidate, must be open to all candidates and not targeted at all. So why not Nick Swain, a former president?
So I used to be SE president. It was pretty fun for most of it. When you go to see a fresher, if you're SE president, on their first week, they come up to you and they say, what does the SE president actually do? In one sentence or less, tell me what you think the SE president actually does.
Okay, I think that's Stanley's start.
Okay, represent. That's literally it. Just represent. Represent exactly what they're all about, and everything they want to be represented. That's it.
Dan?
I'm here to help you organize, be safe, enjoy student life, and make sure that it can be improved for people in the future as well.
Andy?
I think it's to improve your student experience in the way you want it improved.
And Isaac?
To work tirelessly to make your lives better.
Other questions from the floor? Yes, Kat.
So one of your key roles as president is to be chair of the board of trustees. What do you understand that role to be, and how do you reconcile that with what you all seem to have a really good understanding of it being a representative voice? How do you reconcile your role as board of trustee, as chair of the board of trustees, with your representative, to the university, etc.?
Dan.
I am not well versed in like the law of charity charity law. Apparently it's an abbreviation for that. But my understanding is that sometimes it can constrain the way the SU functions. I will do my best to work with the people on the trustee board. But you're asking how it conflicts with my role as representative of the student body. I acknowledge that my understanding of this issue is not, I don't know how they conflict so significantly, but like I'm going to obviously prioritize the role of representing students and fighting for what they need, fighting for an SU that fights for you, and make sure the Board of Trustees is just getting that done. So I'll take a fairly militant approach, I guess. Thank you.
Andy.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand the conflict to be is the fact that the Board of Trustees are ultimately people who strategize for the business, which I hate to use the term of, the business that is the union. They want to make profit. They want to make the union the best business it can be. And the representative of the student is they want to get the best deal for the student. Is that the conflict? I've got a lot of experience with heading up teams and in particular charities and charity law. I think it's one of my favorite buzzwords is the word charity law. I think it's really important to just be pushing the mission statement of delivering the best student experience for Warwick students. I think it's really important to listen to the objections of the Board of Trustees, but also I think it's really important that the Board of Trustees know what they're doing. That's why they've been elected. But it's also, I know what I'm doing, and that's representing the student opinion, and it's finding feasibility where it can. I think it works really well together. Thanks.
Isaac.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, I think, because I think you can say the conflict. You know, being president, you have to represent so many different students in whatever way they want. As I said earlier, the phrase I used, "You are our boss." But as chair of the Board of Trustees, you know, I've been on the trustees this year. It's about ensuring that the union is financially sustainable, the activities are relevant, and that essentially the union is solvent. You know, you can't have offices, you can't have a union without it being financially sustainable. So I think that's where they conflict, because as president you want to drive everything your students are asking for, but as trustees you've got a responsibility to ensure that the union isn't here today, it's here the next year, and it's here in 10 years' time, and it's doing as well as it possibly can. So I think that's where you need somebody with the kind of experience who can put those different hats on and say, there's this time to be political, there's this time to be outspoken, but there's also this time to take sensible decisions to ensure that, as I said, the union is here, not just today, but for the students of 10 years and 20 years and 50 years.
And Stanley.
Okay, so mine's gone blank. Okay, so my priority should just be the students, as simple as. It shouldn't really be, I mean, okay, sure, you can focus on the financial stability of certain institutions, especially, of course, as it's a charity, but I mean, as soon as you start to sympathize, then you start to kind of become a little bit more lax. Really, it should be a case of being more, okay, so I'm going to directly contradict people and say that I wouldn't really, like, what's the word, cave to certain ideals and simply just stay on track with the idea that students are a priority, and of financial stability should be, of course, an issue. It's not something I'd primarily think about, and I wouldn't have those issues in mind, because, well, I'm just going to just not have that as part of my mindset. Thanks.
Other questions from the floor? Yeah, Carl.
Now we've got a departing Vice-Chancellor, and then, assuming they find a new one will arrive. What will the next SU President, whoever it might be, do to select the next Vice-Chancellor, however they will be involved in that process, and how will they ensure that the clusterfuck that's the current relationship between university and students is repaired and hopefully, you know, for the sake of future generations of students, never repeated?
So the future president won't be involved in the recruitment process. That's the current president. However, the question of relations with the university, how will you approach the new vice-chancellor, people in the university, and how will you conduct that relationship? I don't know, maybe contrast collaborative and antagonistic. Andy.
Thank you for a very interesting question, and forgive me whilst I compose my answer in my head right now. I think it's really important to build positive bridges. I think positivity is the most important aspect of any relationship. Constructive rather than just overtly negative. I feel like it's really important to represent student priorities. But in terms of as soon as I get into post, I think it's really important to make a positive bridge so that they start listening to me and I can start listening to them and their side of the argument. But I do think that generally promoting communication from the new Vice-Chancellor from the word go is really, really important. I think but delivering those messages, those tailored marketing that I've spoken about already, the Vice-Chancellor is one that does impact everyone. I feel like they should have more of a presence on the big screen, for example. I feel like he should be far more accessible, not just a figurehead to attack, but someone who interacts back. Thanks.
Isaac.
So one of the leading points of my manifesto is to set up a termly question time with the Vice-Chancellor so that your voices can be heard directly. And I think that's something which a new Vice-Chancellor will give us the opportunity to do. I want it to happen in the final days of Nigel Thrift's reign, but I kind of accept that he might say, no, I don't want to do that. But I think the important thing is that students feel like they can talk to the top person at the university, that they know how the university's run, and that they have a say, because ultimately, in the same way that we're here for 25,000 students, so are the university. We wouldn't have one without you guys. So I think the most important thing in terms of communication and relationships is transparency, is decisions being explained properly without confusion, without people feeling like things are being hidden, that they don't know why decisions are being made. And the only way that can be done is if students have a forum by which they can directly question some of the things that are happening and can suggest directly as well, because, as I say, we are student-led. It's inherent in the university structure. So I think it's building bridges, but also being challenging and pushing boundaries and saying, look, this isn't going to work as a university. You're not going to work as a management team if you're not talking directly to your students. I think it's getting that voice and getting that opinion in the new Vice-Chancellor's head from day one.
Stanley.
Okay, I'd say friendly, really. You tend to get on with people who are your friends, so if I can just befriend the next VC, then of course you tend to just get on with them and work with them better, simply as with any sort of friendship or relationship. And if that weren't the case, then maybe acquaintance, maybe just a howdy, or hello. Why'd you say howdy? But really just a very kind of relaxed relationship in general, and nothing too hard, because it's difficult when to have anything done when you're very aggressive or forceful with anyone. And so, yeah, just be happy, I guess. Just be a happy kind of relationship.
And Dan.
Hello. All right, so I want to stake out my position on management. I believe the university is fundamentally composed of students and faculty, and there's a primary interaction that takes place here. And I think, lean in a bit. I think that management are there to facilitate that. So that will reflect in how I interact with them. I would like to have confidence in the new VC, male or female or otherwise, like I don't with Nigel Thrift. And for them to expect that support, I would expect them to support peaceful protest on campus, to reject even higher pay should it become an opportunity, and angle for at least a 1 in 10 pay structure, 1 to 10 pay structure, sorry, as a ratio. And I think also they have to listen to me. I am you. I'm 24,000 people. If they're not listening to me, I'll kick off about it, because that's not okay. So I will minimize the adversarial nature where possible, but where it becomes necessary, I'm absolutely willing to go to that length. I also think the distance between us and management, as these guys have said rightly so, should be minimized, and that open forums should be conducted on a regular basis between those two parties, so that we can hold them to account on how they're running our university and whether they have the right priorities in mind. Thanks very much.
Other questions from the floor? Yep, over there, I think you were first in the red furniture. No, sorry, there we go.
All right. What past experience do you have that you could bring to this role that sets you aside from the other candidates?
What past experience do you have that you can bring from this role that separates you from other candidates? And remind me, who's going first this time? Isaac?
Yeah, so I think, obviously I've been an officer this year, which doesn't automatically make me the best choice, but what I think is that I know how the union works. I came in not knowing a lot, and I've learned a hell of a lot in the time I've been involved. I know what change can be made and how to go about it, and when constructing my manifesto, which I put kind of as soon as I decided, so around months of thought into, was how is it going to be achieved, is it feasible, and how am I going to go about doing it? And I think I've done that. I've worked with so many different people this year, over 250 societies, so I feel like I kind of engage with a wide diversity of students, and I talk to them every day and I try and make their lives better. I'm going to use this year as a springboard if elected. I feel like I know the union inside out as a result of working there, and working with the staff as well, because we are an organisation that's not just 7 of us, we can't do everything on our own. It's really important we use the support around us to make an SU that functions for the entire membership base, and I feel like that's something I've already done this year as Societies Officer.
Stanley?
What experience do I have? I've been involved in a collection of things, I suppose. I don't have any prominent forms of experience like my fellow candidates, but I deal with people on a regular basis. No, it's not a good experience. I've been involved in school councils in the past. I was there at the very beginning. In fact, I was elected in about year 4 when the first school council was sprang up, and I don't know why, because I guess the other kids thought I was smart and they thought I was nice enough, although they completely disregarded the fact I was shy as hell, so I didn't really say anything during any kind of meeting. So I just kind of skipped the whole school council scene until about year 11, end of high school, whereby, they kind of cut our lunchtime, and I was pretty upset about that, so I decided to get involved again, after a huge hiatus. And then I was told that there was nothing I could do, which just sucked. And so, and then I got involved in a little bit of sixth form counselling, and now I'm here. I'm getting involved simply because there are issues that I'm not happy with, and I'd like to do something about it. And that's really the crux of it. That's it.
Dan.
Hey guys. So as I said earlier, I was E&E this year, ethics and environment ethics. And so I have some experience of SU structures. As I said, I have some experience of its limitations, but also I have vision. I have experience of its potential, right? Okay. So I think I'll be coming in with a sort of fresh approach and highly ambitious approach. A sort of shoot for the stars, hit the moon kind of thing, but let's hit like Alpha Centauri or something. Ooh, nerd. And then, yeah, that was pretty much what I wanted to say. I've actually forgotten the question now as well. Thanks very much.
And Andy.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for a great question. I have 2 answers again, always the 2 answers. Firstly, as RAG president, I delivered every single one of my manifesto points. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that I'm the only candidate that can say that for every position I've run for, every manifesto that I promised, I have delivered every single one of those. And that energy was channeled very much into constructing my 9-point policy plan. I spent a long time with the senior manager of the SU conducting feasibility checks before I put anything in there for definite. I genuinely believe that I can continue my history of achieving everything that I have promised. And secondly, I trust the SU staff with my life. I am elected for a year to provide what the students want, and I know who to work with to get that delivered. I have had a phenomenal relationship to deliver innovation this year. Together with Danielle and the current Societies Officer, we have found funding for a RAG staff member. That was my biggest RAG manifesto point. I brought it to the union and got it delivered because I know who to work with. Danielle was instrumental in that. We found a sponsor, it fell through, and then I found another one, and that my name is on that paperwork, and it's incredible. Because I know who to ask in the union, I know who I trust, I know who my allies are, and I know who I can depend on. Thank you.
And we've got time for one more question. One more question. Yep.
Slight humble brag here. I don't know if any of you have seen the University at Warwick elections bingo card that was on Facebook earlier today. I made that, and I'm very pleased that everybody who is running for various officerial positions and everybody who is supporting those people running has taken it in such good humour. What I want to ask, and I feel my cynicism has been assuaged slightly by watching you gentlemen, how are you going to make sure you don't overpromise and underdeliver?
I haven't seen that bingo card. I'll have to seek it out. Okay, over to Warwick. Got it. I'll go. So, how do you make sure you don't overpromise and underdeliver? And that's Isaac.
First of all, I looked at the bingo card and I counted a few that I had successfully delivered during the week. So thank you for so accurately pinpointing what we do. I think you're absolutely right. You know, every year you see manifestos and sometimes you wonder how they're going to be delivered. In constructing the manifesto, what I tried to do was for each point to talk to the person who I felt had the best experience. And I think the other thing is that, you know, that manifesto is attached to my name, but I could never deliver that on my own. You know, I'd be working with other officers, with part-time officers, with students, with members of SU staff to deliver that. I think the important thing, and something I've learned from this year, is you start the year with a whole list of tasks and you work out, it's terrifying. How on earth are you going to do that? I think it's about being clever and planning and organising and working out how you're going to achieve each point, who are the people you need to talk to, what are the barriers, how are you going to overcome those barriers. And I think, you know, we should be held to account. You're absolutely right. That's your job, is to hold us to account. So having a system whereby you can question us on our manifesto pledges, you can say, why isn't this being done? What are you doing about what you said about this? If there's pressure on us to do that, we're going to make sure we do it, because otherwise we're not doing our job properly. So it's about making sure that you guys are on our heels all the time and that we feel the pressure to do what we said we're going to do.
Stanley.
Well, I haven't really promised that much in my manifesto, so I don't think I can really. I don't think I've overpromised too much. But really, I'm going to see if I can make up for everything I've said before. With this, whenever I feel like doing something, I will try my very best to do it and do it to my full potential, I suppose. And that's with anything and everything that I've ever really tried at. With writing, I write. Animation, I animate. Sort of code, programming, all sorts. Really, I'm a bit of an artist, a bit of a cartoonist, sort of. I dabble in humour like you. It was funny, that bingo card. That was great, actually. I don't think I got any things on it, but anyway, really, if I was in this role, I'll just, because I haven't really promised that much, I'll just try and go above and beyond, really. And everything that I've said I would do, it's something that I really feel like I feel strongly about, and hence I would do everything in my power to really achieve it.
Dan?
Hello. Given that my manifesto is already out there, I've already made promises, so I can't adjust them now. But they're deliberately ambitious. I have a vision of what I want, and I've set it out there, and I hope that what that demonstrates is my general attitude, how I intend to work, my methodology, and also stakes out my position politically. And I think that is kind of essentially what I intended my manifesto to do. Whether I develop, I expect to, like free education, for example, this is a huge issue that is unlikely to be realized within 1 year, given that the movement in Britain is burgeoning. It took Germany 8 years, I believe. So it's about building power as well, and it's about developing things with the future in mind. And I think that I really, really believe in a lot of the stuff I put out there, and I think that is fundamental. I really, really give a shit about a lot of this stuff. And I am dedicated and persistent. And anyone who knows me will tell you that I'm willing to do all-nighters, and I don't mind not sleeping, etc., to make sure things get done. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks very much.
And Andy.
Okay, so firstly, that bingo card is bloody hilarious, and thank you for doing it. And secondly, I'm now going to try and score you house whilst answering. So, hi guys, though I am a very experienced candidate and would love for you to vote for me, I do think I can offer some new solutions that I've thoroughly checked. I've said a lot of it already in my previous answer, but I spent a long time with the union staff, checking that they could deliver things. Before I promised my food and beverage points, I checked with the food and beverage department, I checked with the university. I think keeping some humour in the election is a very, very good idea, and I do think the bingo card is a great example of that. But also I'd like you to know that I spent a long time prepping that manifesto. That's why it's so short. I want to have time to focus on those 9 issues. I do believe I can achieve them. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, you'll be pleased to know that's the end of that. I know you've probably got a lot of kitchen touring to do tonight, so I'll let you go and get on with that. Enjoy the week, talk to as many students as possible, and yeah, thank you everyone for coming to Hustings tonight.